like this collateral won't be returned. Looks like this collateral won't be returned. Looks like this collateral won't be returned. Looks like this collateral won't be returned.
Okay. I think we're all set up. Howdy, Xavier. Good to see you in the chat. Alrighty, let's... Before we get Ring City draft stuff being read aloud to us, let's look... Oh, God. Yeah, this one was kind of annoying. Obtain 50 cosmic fragments if the class is the leader the cosmic obtained are doubled. Ooh. If the domain contains beacons, the cosmic fragment obtains are doubled for the... Ooh. Okay, for the collapse for everyone domain, the knowledge gained, the path boost effect for the selected path. Okay. So you want to ideally avoid elite reward or adventure domains. And you want to make sure they have knowledge, ideally. Okay. So let's see. Immediately applies knowledge to 3 random domains that have knowledge. Yep, okay. Select one domain with knowledge and apply knowledge to all its adjacent domains. Okay, that's cool. Immediately generates 2 random beacons in random locations with knowledge. No, we don't care. Select domain, copy selected domain to 2 random locations. Immediately applies and apply knowledge to it. Okay, immediately applies knowledge to 1 domain adjacent to each domain with knowledge on this plane. After the current movement, immediately applies knowledge to all domains that are about to oh my god, that's good. I think we want to change this one out. Yeah, this was just good. Select 1 domain, immediately applies knowledge to 1 domain adjacent to each domain with knowledge on this plane. For every type of domain that has knowledge on the current plane, immediately no, I don't want a random blessing from that. Okay. After the current movement, immediately applies knowledge to all domains adjacent to the main where characters are located. That's fine. Immediately applies knowledge to 1 random domain that don't have knowledge on this plane yet. Immediately generates 2 random beacons in random domains with knowledge. When entering a domain with knowledge during this movement, apply knowledge to 3 random... Oh, we want to avoid ones with knowledge, but this one... I think I like this one better. Select 1 domain excluding boss. Immediately copy the selected domain onto adjacent domain, apply knowledge effect. When entering a domain with knowledge during this movement, apply knowledge to 3 random domains in the current... Ooh. When entering a domain with knowledge during this movement, apply knowledge. Ooh, but I don't want to enter it. That's the problem. Select one domain, immediately copy it onto the adjacent. Yeah, I think it's better. I think it's better. Alright, so I want to avoid, ideally, elite, reward, or adventure domains if they have knowledge on it. And if I can get them to have beacons, that's even better. Actually... Not seeing anything with beacons. Okay, we'll leave that as is. Alright. Alright, we'll go with investment sale. We're gonna see if we can pull some magic here. We'll do Nihility like last time. Yeah. Yeah. Also gonna go straight into this to save us the trouble, because we always lose Gwenhyfin anyway, so I want to see if, like, Gwenhyfin's really that essential. Anyway, let's go. Alright, let's try it. And in the meantime, chat, let's also put this in the background. Good old Ring City. Now, again, if you guys were just here for the gameplay, then, well, apologies. You're going to have to also listen to my current draft of the Ring City thesis that I have coming up for my website, because I need to listen to someone else read this to me. I need that, because I have been looking over this thing too much. I need a fresh perspective from a text-to-speech, so... Let's get this settled.
Cycle of Origin.
There we go. Oh! My bad. Accidentally screwed this up. Okay.
Cycle of Origin.
Okay.
Located at the ends of the earth, the Ring City is a massive metropolis belonging to the Pygmies, the original tribe to whom the whole human race owes their existence. As Lap acknowledges, their clan was the one to find the Dark Soul during the early days of the First Flame.
There we go.
Attracted by the exotic light like so many before them, the meager race basked in its warmth until one among them came across the last Lord Soul. It was like a small flame, unlike any of the others, but it was still the soul of a king, and it changed everything for the discoverer and the race as a whole. The now-forgotten Pygmy Lord freely shared pieces of that power with his kin, providing each with the humanity so integral to man in the present day. The dark aspect of disparity came to characterize the Pygmies and all subsequent generations as their true soul, making the Lord ancestor to mankind. Fire ascended another savage to civilization. The Pygmy Lord prepared to build up his kingdom. It might come as a surprise then to hear Lorien's wet nurse mention that their city wasn't built by them but the gods. As revealed in the description of the small envoy banner, it was Gwyn who gifted the Pygmies a capital. Indeed, the metropolis possesses the hallmarks of medieval construction with architectural elements and flower species otherwise unique to Inner Londo or Erebor. The city is also home to a rare statue of Gwyn not wearing armor, draped in long robes. The king of the gods offers a crown to a naked man crouching at his feet in awe. This scene is evocative of the Pygmies as depicted in the original Dark Souls, DS1, cinematic. Gwyn's appearance likewise evokes a time before the dragon hunts, where that same cinematic first portrayed him in his iconic fashion. Together, the statue clearly represents first contact between the Pygmies and Medials. The Lord of Sunlight appeared before the fledgling Dark Lord and offered the Pygmy a crown, a kingdom, and a place on the Alliance of Lords. In other words, Gwyn was offering to help bring this barbarian to civilization, the Ring City just one part of it. DS1 had already implied the gods' key role in the development of mankind, collaborating with the Pygmies from the start. The Pygmies themselves had no concept of a crown before the Medials introduced it to them. They were still in the earliest stages of societal advance when Einir Londo first took notice. The Dark Soul was found by a minuscule race who had always been beneath the Medials' notice, passed over for slave labor and disregarded as pets. It was these animals, too simple to even cover their privates, who acquired the last Lord Soul and split it among the whole clan. Einir Londo might have scoffed at the circumstances, but Gwyn still wanted the aid of every Lord Soul in his future campaign against the mighty Archdragons. It was thus incumbent upon the Lord of Sunlight to catch them up to speed, make the tribe a worthy ally. That means a lot of thought and planning had to go into this alliance before the king first approached his shadowy peer with his offer. Constructing a city in the farthest reaches of the globe was well within the gods' means. As the path to the kiln of the first flame from Firelink Shrine showcased in DS1, those Medials had a mastery of light enabling translocation magic. And as the Undead Bird demonstrated in that same game, giant labor could finish a massive city project within a century. Therefore, it was feasible for Einir Londo to scout out a suitable location on the fringes and construct the bare minimum for the capital before the Pygmies had significantly developed. Gwyn then just needed to waltz up with the promise of heights never before seen for this new people. Become a proper kingdom and gain a fancy new home along with all the knowledge cultivated by their greatest predecessor. For a man who just gained a greedy nature, this prospect of civilization must have been irresistible. The spiritual ancestor to mankind accepted the crown and became the Pygmy Lord, forming a royal government with knights in imitation of Einir Londo. Unlike the Silver Knights, however, this Pygmy order relied on their humanity for power. Their swords, spears, and armor were forged by the abyss rather than conventional flame, which is evident in the twisted horns growing sporadically from the metal. Such dark vitality is likely why the suit of armor has higher resistance to petrification curses than the average. Of course, their equipment was also augmented by the god's Titanite, one knight owning a whole slab while the rest still possesses chunks and fragments. With the medial support, owners of the Dark Soul were able to flourish in ways unthinkable for a people at their level of development. Weaving, reading, etiquette, such knowledge and resources from the Sunlight race let them comfortably hone their newly incorporated abyssal powers. However, this would only last for the initial build-up. While rings are a common motif in the capital's architecture, the Ring City appears to have earned its name for the large ring-shaped wall enclosing almost its entirety. The barrier looks like a natural rock formation if not for its convenient shape. Assuming it isn't the product of magic, the locale selection likely was deliberate at least. Although not as explicit in the localization, the stone hum tag describes the Ring City as a Pygmy penal colony, literally land of exile. They would flow into as punishment.
Always
in other
a land
words,
of
the
exile.
wall was designed to confine them. Whether this occurred before or after the occupants moved in, it reveals Gwyn's intention to isolate ancient man in a controlled environment. This explains locating the city as far from civilization, Lord Ran, as physically possible. Recall that Gwyn and his clan feared the dark, so putting so much distance between them and the pygmies is no surprise. Wanting the Lord of Man as an ally in the war to come doesn't suddenly change that prejudice. Their support would come at the end of a 10-foot pole, after they accepted captivity.
We'll do this.
With that in mind, the god's initial support for the Dark's development feels more like cheese in a mousetrap. Gwyn needed his third ally to build up power with his Lord's soul, but he didn't want that same fearsome power to be later used against him. And so, he first enticed the Fourth Lord into a cage with sweet promises, allowing the pygmies to develop only within the constraints of Aener Loundo's control and supervision. The city, the technology, the knowledge, it was all bait to lure them into their own imprisonment. And what an enticing lure it was. Gwyn's statue presents the pygmy lord with not just a crown but also the Chloranthy ring. Given that the green flower represented the Aener Londo faith in its earliest days, this stamina-boosting ring must symbolize the god's support in fast-tracking pygmy civilization. It may now be long faded, but that beautiful green luster perfectly encapsulates the shiny promise to distract man from the so-called god's true intentions. Moreover, the ring's image subtly emblemizes Gwyn gifting them his own lovely green flower, his beloved daughter. A gift not present. Gwyn's youngest daughter emulates her older sister in many respects. Both goddesses bear a strong association with nature, for instance. Filianor is surrounded by it in her bedchamber, overgrown with bushes and vines. This might just be natural overgrowth, but it is unique to her church in general. And even if the overgrown interior is coincidental, she does possess dirt and grass stains at the bottom of her otherwise immaculate white dress. The princess was no stranger to getting dirty to be closer to nature, not just sitting around being served hand and foot from the safety of well-kept urban dwellings like her socialite sister. But while Guinevere's connection chiefly concerns crops for harvest, Filianor's symbol is green grass. Part of this may reflect their respective roles by order of birth. The eldest takes the forefront as the appetizing, towering fruit tree, leaving the youngest in relative obscurity as the lawn in her shadow. Regardless, Filianor's specific association with young grass does highlight her greenness in age compared to her sister, the mature crop. This inferiority to Guinevere extends to their majesty. A model of the younger princess symbol in her possession was once decorated with gemstone, giving the crest its green color. But this was a semi-precious stone, not emerald or some other, more valuable rock. Though still ostentatious and blessed with divine power, it also conveys the humility of the youngest daughter. If Guinevere adorned herself with gold, Filianor preferred silver. She was never going to be the princess of sunlight, nor could she escape her example.
Damn.
And so, Filianor carved her own niche within that framework, a fact best demonstrated by the sacred chime of Filianor.
Damn.
This silver bell has received the princess' divine protection, providing it with unique effects. For one, it extends the area of effect for all the relevant miracles, whether they recovery health like heal, cure abnormalities like caressing tears, or enhance abilities like sacred oath. Then there is its skill. Prayer of favor functions identical to the gentle prayer of most other holy bells, hence both are a prayer of blessing in the Japanese script. However, while synonymous, the term for Filianor's blessing still differs from that of others' grace.
There we go.
The choice for the distinction is itself not important, both are labels for a miracle's power. Rather, it seems simply to highlight how the gradual healing from Filianor's blessing additionally extends to those in the caster's area. Thus, purely in function, the catalyst is already distinct from its peers. However, there is also the form of said catalyst. Recall that cloth talismans were the standard among the gods originally. Although the New World later popularized sacred chimes, Filianor was apparently the first to employ such holy bells as miracle catalysts, long before the events of Dark Souls 2. DS2, perhaps she just preferred sound as a medium for performing miracles. A physical talisman is limited by the confines of its space, no matter the power weaved into the fabric, it remains restricted to that visual element. But a sacred chime carries its power through sound, thereby possessing a greater potential reach. As someone living in her big sister's shadow before Gwendolyn, Filianor might have uniquely recognized the value in that less flashy form of magical expression. Whatever the case, the princess settled on the audio factor for her brand of divinity. If history is anything to go by, she was ahead of her time. All of this reflects Filianor's desire to provide blessings widely like her sister, though to a far greater extent. While Guinevere typically reserves her blessings for warriors, Filianor makes no such distinctions. Everyone may receive her favor, just as how grass grows wherever it is able, a goddess of the people if ever there was one. While Guinevere has become popular for bringing sustenance to the common man, Filianor would be the one to bring him quality of life. Of course, she would never get the chance to fully realize her niche to wider mankind. She was gifted to the pygmies along with their capital, where she has stayed ever since. It is certainly appropriate, given her name, Filianor, or Firianor, derives from J.R.R. Tolkien's Sindarin to mean son of man. But why would Gwyn consign his youngest daughter to blessing the penal colony? In truth, the choice was excellent. Even assuming that the Lord of Sunlight might be biased toward his eldest daughter, his youngest was still more suited to living amongst the race the gods all feared. Between her relative age and overall disposition, she was most liable to tolerate their company, perhaps even interact without prejudice. A prolonged stay at the secluded capital would thus be less taxing on her compared to a social butterfly of god society like Guinevere. Conversely, her sunlight powers possess no less utility than her sister's holy magic, specifically in terms of ingratiating man to the medial self-professed divinity. Gwyn may have loved his daughter dearly, but prior games prove his willingness to sacrifice his children for politics, using them in whatever his ploys required. And if he had to choose one of his only 3 children at the time as a gift to the pygmies, the young goddess was the optimal option. The only question then is why the wily king felt this gift necessary. The answer partly lies in the nature of his gift. Why send a young maiden to another king? For a marriage alliance. Countless princesses through history have been traded as spouses to secure agreements and strengthen diplomatic ties. If Gwyn offered his daughter along with Aener Loundo's support to the pygmy lord, then he was already treating Filianor's situation no different from an arranged marriage. She certainly wasn't being sent off as a slave. After being attacked by Gale, one pygmy king desperately crawls to Filianor's tower, calling out to her for help. This betrays the royal's trust and respect for Aener Loundo's princess. And yet, the lack of titles or honorifics suggests that the man isn't subordinate to her either, treating the goddess like one would a longtime friend. In other words, Filianor seems to have been considered as an equal by the pygmy royalty. This makes sense if she was gifted to their founding king to be a liaison, ambassador, or nominal bride. Indeed, nominal is the appropriate descriptor. Filianor remains a princess, with no evidence of a consummate marriage. Gwyn was not sending his beloved daughter with the intention of siring heirs of mixed royal blood. If anything, he would prohibit it. If the princess was a wife, it was to the royal line as a whole, her virtue never sullied, not unlike a concubine in an imperial harem left ignored for life. The Lord of Sunlight's actions appear to simply pantomime the marriage alliance concept, Filianor acting in that capacity of a political wife while never assuming the corresponding titles and responsibilities. The illusion itself is definitely the developer's intent, as she is referenced as wife, internally. In practice, however, the princess was little more than a political hostage, collateral to demonstrate Gwyn's sincerity to the pygmies. She occupied that vague space as a foreign royal staying amongst fellows of a smaller ally. Put plainly, Gwyn gifted the pygmies his daughter along with a city to assuage any suspicion regarding the latter. It sounds too good to be true, as the saying goes. Any primitive, avaricious, or no, would be on guard against random kindness from a stranger. But if the newfound pygmy royalty held the Lord of Light's precious daughter, surely there was no cause for concern. Should he actually prove duplicitous with his aid, they could always threaten to harm their hostage. The fact that Aener Loundo's king was offering such a disadvantage to himself right out the gate would inspire confidence in the pygmies. Add in their predilection for taking, and the promises Gwyn made became too good to pass up. But in truth, Filianor was a Trojan horse. Gwyn's ingenious trick was not making a deal the tribe he feared would accept, but to use that faux fairness to enmesh Aener Londo deeper in pygmy politics. The issue when a weaker party takes a hostage is that it is their only leverage. Once that option has been exhausted, the hostage takers have nothing else to deter the other party. They thus couldn't just resort to maiming or killing said hostage for every little perceived indiscretion. Suddenly, politics takes on a new dimension of escalation. At some point, they have to use their trump card, but they don't ever want to end up in that position. Meanwhile, the pawn need to be given all the comforts and luxuries of an Inner Lando princess, for fear of her father escalating the issue. To avoid accusations of maltreatment, the goddess would be free to move around the court, speak to members, showcase her powers, opening up potential to sway public opinion, negotiate options, steer policy. Her very presence was sure to create a faction of loyalists who recognized where the true power lied in this city built by the gods. No matter how beautiful and green, Gwyn had planted a weed which would slowly strangle the Pygmy Lord's kingdom. The feeding hand curls.
Yep.
Suffice to say, the Pygmies' honeymoon with Inner Lando ended just as swiftly as it began. None of this should have been lost on their lord. Back in DS1, Kyle elucidated how the ancestor to modern man was thinking long-term, predicting fire's inevitable wane and thereby the dark's invariable rise in a new age. The Dark Lord was as much using the Lord of Sunlight as the reverse. What position were they in to resist the king whose power was at its strongest in this still dawning age? Better to take the deal and make the most of it while prepping for his future dominion over the world. Let the gods grow complacent as they keep the dark under their boot. Once their light did wane, the Pygmies would be able to throw off the heel and turn the tables on their oppressors. But the Pygmy Lord underestimated the extent of Gwyn's treachery. As Koth had revealed, the gods shackled man, which the Mount Makers had located in the vertebrae. Past games already indicated this to be Gwyn's role in imposing the undead curse. The first sin as Aldia imagined it. And we see how this was effectuated in the Ring City. The descriptions to the Ring Knight's abyssal weapons affirm that they received a seal of fire like their owners. This is an obvious reference to the Dark Sign, the Ring of Fire enclosing the Dark Hole just as the Ring Wall surrounds the Pygmy capital. Indeed, for all mankind to be shackled through every generation requires the medials of light impose this curse of flame on the first generation, sparing none. This is only practical if the whole clan remain concentrated in a relatively limited location, which the Ring City facilitates. After rounding them up in a cage of their own volition, the gods could ensure no Pygmy left the penal colony without their dark soul sealed. This is final confirmation that the so-called Dark Ring was a byproduct of the fiery gods' meddling. But to coerce this outcome still required cooperation from the royal government. This is where the poison in their midst began to take effect. How does one ensure the safety and serenity of a princess whose race fears your power? That vast abyss might consume her tiny light at a given moment. What precautions were in place to counteract fools acting on sinful greed? With Filianor in most immediate danger, it is easy to see Inner Lando lobby to put limits on the dark the Pygmies utilized. On that thin justification, the gods pressured the penal colony to acquiesce to further constraints, not just for themselves, but for all things that might threaten the light. The fire sealing the Ring Knight's weapons and armor has made the Pygmies' abyssal forging no different from mundane metallurgy. With this comes the implication that they would be forging no new equipment via those methods. The gods determined that their existing arsenal was enough, so the capital's army has been forced to rely on the same old weapons for practically its entire history. The trade-off wasn't a total net loss. Even now, after so long, their dilapidated equipment retains embers of the seal, the Knights able to draw out that remaining fire to incredible effect. The order dedicated to the abyss had immense new power at their disposal. Still, the gods' de facto cap on arms and armor preempted any further military buildup. The government more or less stripped itself of its one means to resist further oppression. The state was also complicit in the propaganda war against the public. Statues depict the common Pygmy burdened by a weighty ring, evocative of Christ bearing a cross as the suffering servant.
Yep.
Much like the Christian Messiah who died for mankind's sins, each Pygmy must carry the ring of fire as his cross, a sacrifice required to repent for his own original sin of humanity. Every citizen in the Ring City is presented a reminder that they have to atone for existing. Suddenly, the ringed motif to the city the gods built becomes all the more insidious. From the start, Gwyn wanted to enculturate the Pygmies to accept this imagery, using every subtle trick to move the needle when the time came to seal them with it. The Dark Sign was the culmination of this carefully constructed plot. By this point, the medials also impressed their authority as gods, introducing worship of his clan's fire and light. This did ultimately take hold, as we encounter a number of clerics among the Pygmy populace connected to Inner Lando religion. In every facet, the message is clear: the ring is good, it is holy, it is essential. In short, the Pygmy kingdom allowed Inner Lando to run roughshod over its subjects. For the fourth developed civilization in history, the Ring City behaved as a mere vassal to its predecessors. Again, the Pygmy Lord held fast to the belief that submission to the gods was only temporary, overshadowed by the eternity after their fire eventually burned out. One might argue that the final Lord would have the last laugh, seeing current events. But thanks to Gwyn's scheming, he would not live to see that age of free man. To shackle humanity was to also fetter its immortality. With their dark suppressed by flame, humans went from the longest living race to the shortest all too soon. This was especially debilitating to a tribe reliant on other races for its development. Gods like Filianor were now the one consistent factor for future generations, encouraging them to lean on the divine in order to preserve a sense of continuity. As for past generations, they too would now be in the hands of the gods. When we first arrive at the Ring City, we are brought to the capital's largest landmark, two towers forming a gargantuan arch. The bonfires like the ringed inner wall clarify this place as a partition between the city and the royal mausoleum, where the Pygmy royalty have been buried. Indeed, across the beautiful rooftop gardens filled with budding green blossoms from Lord Rand stand unique tombstones with holes in their center, clear-cut reference to the Dark Sign. The one exception to this ring motif is the stone coffin in a separate tomb adjacent to this outdoor cemetery. The corpse with a hidden blessing laying against this coffin suggests that it inters a warrior blessed by Guinevere, the holy water having cooled in Indians since it was first bestowed. Add in the silver knight statues decorating walls below the mausoleum, and we can determine the entombed to be one such knight, likely stationed as the gravekeeper when the mausoleum was first established. Naturally, he has succumbed to time the same as his brethren. In other words, Inner Lando closely watched over the royals even in death. They certainly saw the royal family's final rites as a way to further entrench themselves in the survivors' minds. The statue of Gwyn and the Pygmy Lord is the centerpiece to the foyer past the main entrance. From the moment the royals enter, they are reminded how their position in life is only thanks to the magnanimity of the gods. They should therefore be grateful that the deities of light have permitted them this life and accept that they also hold the reins on their death. Pygmy royalty deserves to have the full might of Inner Lando keep a watchful eye, ensuring they behave as they proceed up the lift and stairways to bury their kin. This is very much literal, as beyond the silver grave keep on staff, a myriad of watchtowers have been integrated alongside the archtop graveyard. The local bonfire is located in this royal mausoleum lookout, so these towers were intended to survey their surroundings. This would be not just the graves, but the entire capital, the mausoleum arch impossible to avoid seeing each day, and neither could they avoid being spied from those lookout towers. The message was clear: not even their king could escape the god's judgment. Never forget the always watchful eye of Providence. Granted, the unmissable landmark does double to elevate the Pygmy royalty from their subjects, perversely enough. Across a bridge from the mausoleum is the much less conspicuous shared grave, a burial ground for the community, obviously excluding royals. As to be expected, this common graveyard looks like your typical catacomb, putting aside the corkscrew design to the layout evoking the predictable ring imagery. Even still, the medial seems to have felt compelled to keep watch of it. After entering the mausoleum foyer, visitors may take another path next to the lift up to the royal cemetery. This second path leads to a chamber laid with fancy red carpets and elegant wood chairs on top of the usual silver knight statues, suggesting some kind of elite resting area. From there, they proceed out to the shared grave bridge. Why include this casual space, and with so much effort? Perhaps some royals wanted to mourn close aides. Most likely, however, this rest area primarily served more Silver Knights when they weren't on gravekeeping duty at the common grave. Their medial status afforded them the luxury, and the casual space let them act as intermediaries for any royal visitors, and there are more bones laying around the one gravekeeper's tomb. As for the actual commoners, communal visitation was naturally handled by the neighborhood watch. We reached the shared grave from another entrance at the bottom of the corkscrew, crossing a different bridge that once linked back to the cityscape, now sinking into a swamp.
Boop.
Before that, a small bypath in the cobblestone leads us to an especially large building. Besides the size, it is notable for the number of ring knights still patrolling the place as it sinks. No other part of the explorable city holds such a large concentration of knights, so this building must be a barracks or similar kind of military installation for them to
How do we
operate out
handle
of.
this?
Their situation next door to the bridge thereby enables the knights to easily screen passersby before the citizens cross to visit deceased relatives. Why the added security? Likely for fear of rebels among the masses.
Alright, we'll go with this.
After all, some curious souls might use the collection of dead men in a secluded location to study the humanity, as we witness at the undead settlement. The pygmies were regulating themselves to ensure they complied with the god's ban better than suffering a worse crackdown. In the end, it was always to appease Ain Orlando. Overall, the Ring City's funerary system was designed for the pygmy subjugation and Dark's degradation more than anything. Likely the only reason Gwyn didn't go farther was because of the primordial serpent's intervention. Certain chambers in the Royal Mausoleum complex stand out for erecting statues of the world serpents, portraying the latter with a more realistic body compared to the
Blessing
idealized rendition later
Curiosity
sculpted in Lothric.
fragments or
Todd's eyewitness
cheat?
account in DS1 affirms that the snakes were intimately
Make it
familiar
cheat.
with the pygmy royalty from the start. Recall, however, that they were also close to the gods, prior to Undeath's emergence. As wise elders seeking the proper age for the universe, it isn't a surprise if the world serpents began realigning themselves once the owners of the Dark Soul were discovered. They were liable to object when Gwyn decided to seal man's humanity with flame. The Mausoleum statues thus seem to act as a counterbalance to their Silver Knight counterparts, demonstrating their solidarity with the pygmies destined to inherit everything in the coming age. However, Framp's example shows how the primordial serpents were eventually compromised for getting too close to the world's transitory stewards. There was probably great hesitance to stand against Gwyn too starkly, especially at this crucial juncture. After all, the Lord of Sunlight was to lead his cohorts into a new age of fire, characterized by the disparity each holds. It is the nature of disparity to clash, so wasn't stifling the pygmies of Dark arguably unavoidable? It was too much to draw a firm line with the light while the age was still in its dawn. And at the end of the day, they were snakes, with bodies of skin, scales, fur, and draconic forearms. Even coming to possess a dark nature themselves, they were no lords. At best, the world serpent's advice prevented the Dark Soul from facing total annihilation, their immortal souls allowed to rest with their mortal bodies untouched that was sure to also please the Gravelord. Perhaps they believed the gods of light would soften their stance given time. Regardless, the snake stood as a mere speed bump in Gwyn limiting humanity's full potential. There is irony in the medials admonishing man's taking a sin while robbing them of their eternal future. But the light's conception of honor left them blameless. Gwyn and his dark counterpart connived against each other, but the king of Ain Orlando invented the game of politics. The pygmy lord might have seen the big picture, but in the present arena, he didn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
At the center of an elevated platform, tall above the ring graves, stands a unique tomb crowned with an obelisk. Recall that Ain Orlando religion uses obelisks to denote heroes for similarly high-profile individuals. Apparently, this practice dates back to the Age of the Gods, incorporating the symbolism even into the mausoleum for pygmy royalty. In other words, that unique grave must bury an unparalleled pygmy royal, a king among kings, and who more appropriate than their founder, the Fourth Lord? The king of the pygmies' fate was the same as his successors, dying cut off from the power which earned him his crown as a testament to light's supremacy. All his achievements, so easily forgotten. Turning point.
Select one domain.
Finally, the long-awaited dragon hunts came. When the gods requested that the last lord contribute to this endeavor, he answered. The ring knights were deployed to stand alongside Gwyn's army as the four lords challenged the legacy of the old world. It was a hard-fought conflict, but the first kings were ultimately victorious, and with victory comes the spoils.
It chose it anyway,
The pygmies mimicked the gods in decapitating their prey for trophies, as DS1 had established.
I
Certain
can't
knights
believe
using
that
their rock-hard
worked.
heads as
That's
shields.
exactly what we
Although obviously
wanted,
intended to
yeah.
showcase prestige, it also reveals the extent to which pygmy society looked to the medials of light for guidance by this point. Perhaps fighting side by side as brothers in arms gave the soldiers a sense of kinship. However, the sentiment certainly wasn't shared. The knights, like their king, would never be celebrated in song or annal. The dark side in the medials' war was to be strictly forgotten by the wider world. Such disrespect might even be reflected in their trophies. Archdragons are typically among the largest creatures in the series. And yet, the ring knight's own head so small that they are wieldable. This may simply be a creative liberty on the developer's part. Ain Orlando's Royal Manor mounted similarly sized wyvern head models as stand-ins in DS1, after all. However, the shield's descriptions do emphasize these archdragons as descendants, so it is possible that the gods took the best pickings from the original generation, leaving the ring knights with only the younger, smaller heads to claim. Of course, even with their diminutive size, they still belonged to archdragons. Scales of immortality meant that this creature could survive as a mere severed head. Whether it was treated like any other animal trophy, the heads do not decay regardless, unlike the dragon zombies from DS1. Rather, the living soul lies dormant, perhaps because it is cut off from the heart. The shield bearers can thus briefly rouse the dormant consciousness, inducing the dragons to breath fire upon their enemies or knock them off their feet with a titanic roar. The descendants still possess the power of an ancient. Nevertheless, the dragon head shields highlight their mistreatment. Since DS1, items associated with the gods have had their powers defined as mystical or mysterious mystery, referring literally to a god's secret, invoking divine mysteries. The term would also be used for the godly forces of the arcane and bloodborne in Elden Ring, be it Velka, Seth, Gwendolyn, or the Fair Lady. Knowledge of such magic is recognized as exclusive to the divine. This includes the powers of archdragons. Rocky existences raw might even when colored by disparity.
Oh my god.
After all, it was the gods who hunted the archdragons to nigh extinction, using their bodies for experiments. Yet the mystery was familiar to more than just medials. The ring knights proved man just as capable of studying draconic power and passing the knowledge down. But the gods wouldn't allow it. The pygmies had to return to the confines of their city, never to spread word of their past triumphs or the secrets they to retain. More than fear of the dark, this was about putting down the race of man in total.
Good one.
Of course, for some, they might have felt uplifted. Common to every pygmy citizen we encounter is the ability to conjure miracles. More specifically, they cast Lightning Spear and Lightning Strike, both featured in the Lord's Dragon Hunts. Moreover, they produce these spells in the right hand despite wielding weapons in their left, without using a cloth talisman or similar catalyst, exactly like Gwyn and his knights during the Dragon Hunts. The citizens likewise carry lightning gems collected in the wake of dragon slaying. Altogether, this suggests that every pygmy fought alongside the gods, not just the knights. This Ain Orlando required silver knights at the vanguard, but couldn't they save more lives if pygmies filled in those ranks? And why invest so much into pygmy civilization if only a small percentage would actually contribute to their hunts?
We can't
Therefore,
freeze her.
commoners were probably also
Oh,
conscripted into the army as fodder. And looking at the veterans' continued reliance on these old miracles, this was likely when
I
Ain
think
Orlando
this was
religion
the
really
better
began to take
option.
hold. Recall that the
I'm gonna
dragon hunts did
regret
rack up a
this,
high
but-
death count for the lords. If the knights struggled against these foes, the infantry robbed of immortality had even less chance of survival. Through hard times, they discovered God. Since they didn't have the ring knights' elite training and equipment, the common pygmies were forced to put their faith in the gods. The medials were happy to oblige, worming their way into the masses' hearts as comrades during battle. If the feeble infantry were willing to cultivate their faith along with souls more aligned to holiness, then they too could have the powers to slay these fearsome stone dragons. Aener Londo religion would thus immediately entrench itself in the population when the survivors did return home to their penal colony. The civilian body were grateful to the gods who saved their lives during a conflict the gods forced them to join, and those gods wouldn't even remember their sacrifice. The menials wished to take sole credit for all the age's creation, a combination of their arrogance and prejudice. Aener Londo's kind veneer was in service to disarming man as they were slowly emasculated. Nowhere is this more evident than when the gods did eventually allow the humans to leave the ringed city and spread across the globe. Maybe this was justified as reward for their contribution to the dragon hunts. Regardless, at least certain pygmies were permitted to escape the walls and settle other lands. This allowed the ringed city to maintain relations with a non-medial nation. The description to the antiquated flame guard references a delegation visiting the capital long ago. The text previously ties the attire to a country with old sorcery, such sorcery imbued in the small, golden ornaments decorating the cloth. This plus the name's obvious allusion to the antiquated set worn by Princess Dusk affirms that the delegates came on behalf of Owalasile. Considering the age of both countries, diplomatic ties between them isn't a surprise. But when factored with previous implications from past games, this relationship takes on a new dimension. Recall that allowing mankind to multiply far and wide was implicitly to dilute human power, fracturing the clan identity so that they were easier to manipulate, namely in the course of excising the abyss from the culture. Owalasile was a test case for this, using Manus, creator of dark sorcery, founder of Owalasile, and progenitor of its royal line. Looking at the political climate in the Ringed City, it is no wonder why the ancient sorcerer was the first to invent rational study of humanity. The gods' crackdown on the penal colony made it impossible to develop new abyssal craft. And as an ancient man who established the prototype modern kingdom, Manus was most likely one of the city's resident pygmies, which must have felt suffocating for such a curious mind. Perhaps he devised his arts in secret to spike the ceiling, especially when they were faced with death and adversity during the dragon hunts. Either way, it was inevitable that he agreed to resettle the forests at the foot of Aener Londo if they allowed him to freely explore the dark's potential. But like the Ringed City, Owalasile was a honey trap. After his passing, the gods introduced his descendants to the Mushroom Men and gradually eroded the country's ties to the dark. The fact that the antiquated set bears signs of golden sorcery is telling. At the time of the delegation, Owalasile was already a kingdom of light. The Olasilians still remembered their history with the pygmies but had long abandoned their dark heritage, spoiled suckling the divine teeth, and as DS1 showcased, they eventually forgot even that. Countries after Owalasile would fare no better. The older ones may have continued diplomatic exchanges with the Ringed City, keeping their own memory alive. Several parties target the Ringed City long after the pygmies should have been forgotten, all because it is the source of the dark soul. This is only possible if records of the pygmy capital survive, scant as they must have been. The Ring of the Evil I found in the shared grave similarly cements the connection between the city and the outside world through trade. But whichever countries facilitated that contact, it did nothing to stop the decline in dark practice. Those holding on to tradition soon shoved to the fringes of society. In light of the primordial serpent's involvement, this controlled migration may have also been Gwyn's way to string everyone along into thinking the medials were giving humans more freedoms over time. In the end, however, the Lord of Sunlight was always maneuvering to secure his kingdom's dominance over their vassal. In the lead-up to Gale's boss fight, we see that the Ringed City is now ruled not by one king but an entire council of pygmy monarchs. We bear witness to 9 kings, though only 8 surviving thrones in their ruined audience chamber. Based on the seating circular layout, there may have been as many as 16 pygmy lords. Whatever the exact number, it is obvious that no singular king stood above the others. The origin of this is just as easy to surmise. Recall in DS1 how Gwyn installed the 4 kings to rule New Londo, another vassal state established by Aener Londo to amass all the humans the gods feared. Clearly, New Londo was founded on the Ringed City's precedent, so it wasn't the first time that the Lord of Light divided man's royal authority amongst a hand-picked group. After the death of their first king, the pygmies must have suffered a crisis of succession. Perhaps history's 4th lord died unexpectedly, such as on campaign during the dragon hunts, before he had chosen an obvious heir. Perhaps there were simply many greedy royals contesting the claim of one successor. In either case, Gwyn likely used the political vacuum to step in and mediate, offering to grant many a share of that power for themselves. The select kings were apparently happy to allow their actual power be diluted in pursuit of possessing any at all. The result was a congress of self-serving politicians who would struggle to effectuate major policy without becoming deadlocked in endless debate. And who there would help broker compromises between them? Filianor. She could always be the outside counsel, providing insight on her father's behalf while playing factions against each other behind closed doors. No wonder the latest generation of kings, even in their most dire hour, looked to Filianor for aid. The pygmy royalty has gradually become impotent by their continued dependence on Aener Londo. In short, it was a short-sighted solution with disastrous long-term consequences for pygmy sovereignty. The finder of the dark soul truly didn't realize the depths Gwyn would go to manipulate their nature against them, how the vainglorious liar would slowly twist perceptions in the wake of his death. As Koth had said, the Lord of Sunlight didn't plan to let any Dark Lord step up when fire eventually did wane. Now that he had subverted human hierarchies to this extent, Aener Londo's king was on track to making the vassal kingdom his puppet. Already, the Lord of Light was draining the Ringed City of its dark, thinning the dark soul across its ever-growing human population. Given time, the short-lived species could be depleted of all their humanity, and medials had all the time to wait. Even still, expunging the darkness from man proved an obstinate thing. The description to the Royal Envoy banner unveils that when gifting his beloved daughter to the pygmies, Gwyn promised to someday come and pick her up again. She wasn't intended to stay under the pygmies' care in perpetuity. The Lord of Light presumably planned to bring Filianor back to Aener Londo once her role was finished. In other words, once his greatest fear was 100% neutralized.
I think we're safe now.
This was a slow-going process. Those who sealed humanity progressively thinned as they multiplied while simultaneously cultivating separate, lighter souls were more easily malleable. The same cannot be said for members of the tribe who remained in the penal colony. Their confines limited the population, so their rate of dark soul dilution must have been much slower than humans worldwide. This means that, both physically and culturally, they would hold faster to their humanity. The physical element is the most immediately obvious. Going by their features in person and statue, the pygmies distinguish themselves from modern man by their wizened face and gray hair, echoing historic Xena from DS1. With this comes higher cheekbones, wider mouths, and flatter noses. These traits are especially pronounced in the kings, their noses so short that they more resemble apes than Homo sapiens. This was probably a deliberate choice on the developer's part to highlight man's evolutionary history. The implication is that the pygmies' more hollow-like form, contrast to the rest of mankind resembling the medials, stems from the dark soul. This is consistent with insinuations concerning man's true form from past games, but is more pronounced with the original human clan, culminating with the pygmy kings. Like Aener Londo royalty with the medial clan, Ringed City royalty possess more humanity than their kinsmen. All pygmies in the capital bleed black, but Gale targets solely the kings for the blood of the dark soul he seeks. The Ringed City Hollow likewise puts us on his same path to obtain that soul. The spiritual ancestors' direct descendants naturally retain the lion's share of the Lord's soul split up amongst the clan. Black blood seems to merely signal greater density to humanity, as with other dark-aligned entities. This is consistent with the skeletons occasionally rising from their graves within the capital. Although not uncommon everywhere else, this instance of reanimation appears to be due to humanity specifically. Fleshy growths with tendrils permeate the skeletal structures, bones stained with spatters of that same dark. Why have we not seen this elsewhere in the series, unless the dark souls behind such spontaneous generation of life in the long dead are of a unique degree or quality? In life and death, the pygmies harbor the greatest dark. This makes it that much harder for ancient man to escape their dark heritage, and that is assuming they wish to. To this day, the ringed knights forgo a helmet in favor of a multi-layered eye wrap, the cloth drenched in the abyss. Covering their eyes with the blackened fabric doesn't impede their sight in any way, so it likely allows them to see their surroundings through the abyss, similar to the Firekeeper's mask. Unlike the rest of their clothing, it is not embedded at the fringes, so Einer Londo never considered this use of the abyss significant enough to be a threat. But despite this function, it is not the reason for the fashion statement. This minor use of the dark is their one pathetic, silent resistance against the gods, as if constantly staring into the abyss would make up for all the dark hidden from them by flame. It may be a childish rebellion by a feckless chivalric order, but it still shows where their loyalties lay even as they faithfully served wavering lieges.
Well,
Even the royal council, with its incestuous relationship with Einer Londo, would not abandon the birthright justifying their rule over the tribe so easily. We see that the king's flaunt iconography of the abyss, their clothes weaved with dark vortexes while their crowns bear numerous pitch black holes. Compromised by fire or no, the ringed city was still a kingdom of dark, and its lords were in no position to readily relinquish that memory.
well,
If Filianor was to stay until the kings had forgotten this history, she would be waiting a long time. Granted, Gwyn was in no rush. Evidently, the Lord of Sunlight was happily to erode the dark culture little by little over the course of countless generations. Man was still becoming enfeebled and senile as the Age of Fire took its course. The dark had been gradually pushed out of human mainstream, carried on by witches and barbarians, the latter at least also failing to preserve adequate memory of their history. The ringed city was little known and never celebrated. Leaving things to continue, there would be no heirs to the dark when that day did come. But for perhaps the first time in his life, time was not on Gwyn's side. The darkness strikes back. As foreseen, the first flame did begin to fade. But to Einer Londo's surprise, the shackles imposed upon man manifested in a more terrible curse. Estranged from their humanity for so long, undying man found their new souls consumed by the latent dark, becoming mindless monsters starved for more souls.
oh god.
The pygmies suffered no different. Every surviving pygmy we encounter in the city considered a hollow. It is no surprise to see the common citizens carrying hollow gems, but the gods were not prepared for this ironic twist of fate.
Well,
Caught unawares,
may as
their
well-
schemes were bound to come
may as well
undone.
do this.
Kod and his ilk were ready for man to lead the new age. But then Frampt betrayed them. The rogue serpent sided with Gwyn and lent credence to maintaining the current age beyond its natural end. With the Lord of Light having the cover of one descending sage elder among their ranks, he pushed forward with his hubris. Man at large was confused and habitually subservient. The gods just needed to get ahead of the narrative, with which Frampt was so willfully assisting. The undead curse running rampant demanded extreme solutions, and Holy Light's efficacy against the dark supplied the means. Gwyn tasked his uncle to risk life in the field in the hopes of bringing the humans within their reach back under their firm control. And while Lloyd may have based himself relatively close to home in Thorland, the far-flung ringed city was no less part of the world of man within his prerogative.
Alright.
In fact, introducing the pygmies to the new church was paramount. And as we can see, the way of white has been accepted by the local clergy. Certain ringed city clerics fling themselves at us while conjuring white orioles around his spinning body, this holy saw blade type miracle befitting priests of Lloyd's era. The undead clerics overall likewise dress in the same blue robes as their modern way of white counterparts. That reveals the age to this practice, but the uniform also implies the presence of the pus of man, which the clergy also try to suppress with lids on their backs.
Good, do this early.
This might sound odd, since the pus as we know it never appeared before this game. How could the way of white under Lloyd develop a practice that the church never used outside the ringed city until now? The obvious long before the history of Lothric. Farron Torch does suggest that pus was purged with fire in times prior, and the ringed knights have plenty of fire to do the purging. The gap in time is also logical. Just as how the waning first flame has a disproportionate effect on its immediate surroundings initially, the place where the waxing dark soul remains most concentrated sees the answer is that it was only relevant in the ringed city at the time. The pus first appeared there, most effects before reverberating to the fragments spread throughout the world. The pygmies' humanity saw the most activity because it, collectively, was the most desperate for freedom from its fetters. The smaller pieces began to stir only after they had eons to stew. In short, Ring City has probably been dealing with the pus since the curse's onset, turning to the newly established church for salvation. The undead cleric shells, combined with their walk on all limbs, make them resemble tortoises, which symbolize luck and longevity in Japanese folklore as havens for immortals.
Yep.
Whether a deliberate choice by the way of white or just from software, the holy men embody a welcoming image to the distraught citizenry in need of moral examples. The clerics would demonstrate how to deal with undeath, stay strong against the ravenous dark. Certainly, these clergy are experts in channeling the curse. One miracle of theirs has the typical holy sigil mixed with a dark aura, damaging others within the area of the runic ring on the ground. Without a proper catalyst, the clerics must be drawing upon the power within themselves, their souls blessed. This explains the blessed gems in their possession.
They save
But
it.
as undead, they also draw out the power of the humanity consuming those souls, dark devouring the enemy along with the light of the holy magic. That is just one way they try to reign in undeath. The clerics in town mostly inhabit some kind of seminary or monastery, where they roam around giving praise to the gods under the Silver Knight statue's watch, bearing the most pressure to be faithful. This building has direct path to the royal mausoleum for their exclusive access, presumably for performing final rites and caretaking. That explains the pots and seal urns shared between the two facilities. However, the mausoleum also houses wooden boxes, most of which litter broken through the complex. This can't simply be random clutter since the same boxes remain intact only in the far tower of the mausoleum arch, disconnected from the rest of the facility. In other words, the boxes were delivered to whole complex but only used in the main
There
tower.
we go.
This suggests that their contents were intended for the dead reached from that section. And in all likelihood, they were brought in after the dark sign began to manifest on the pygmies. Recall that such boxes were delivered to the Cathedral of the Deep and broken at the cleansing chapel for the implicit
Alright,
suppression of
let's
the dark
see.
corrupting of the
Anything
deep.
else?
But then is likely their same purpose at the mausoleum, the clergy trying to stop the horrors of the pygmy royals rising up again. Such a scenario isn't unprecedented, looking at Minas Revival in DS1. If the powerful dark sorcerer possessed anywhere near comparable humanity, a pygmy king might manifest a similarly strong curse. Their revival as the gods' shackles weakened might well have been the reason for the primordial serpents supporting the mausoleum project. More than that, they could manifest enough power to become horrid monstrosities. The potential alone gives God-fearing pygmies incentive to combat that outcome by every means. The shriving stone found in the monastery similarly conveys the cleric's desire to shed the curse. Keeping the royals dead during this calamity was therefore an important caretaking duty. As with the Cathedral of the Deep, the Ring City clergy have resorted to any means to curb the burgeoning dark. Like in other countries, their teachings spread amongst the general public. God-fearing citizens dress in deep red, likely to show solidarity with fire like deacons of the Way of White. When not using them to hang around in ambush, the undead have impaled themselves, and each other, with crude stakes through the heart. They seem to specifically be using copper stakes in a desperate attempt to suppress the dark, similar to the Cathedral of the Deep. Their concerns are validated by their continued survival despite the gaping holes in their undying chests and have only proved more apt over time. Some have had their souls thoroughly gnawed on for so long that their bodies have partially petrified, the voracious dark doing the same to us by simple proximity. To completely absorb our disparity through the air speaks to the threat of the pygmies' curse compared to most men. Between the pus of man and these other factors, the Ring City was ground zero for the calamity befalling the entire world. Even if most isolated from Lord Rand, the Way of White couldn't leave the pygmies to their own devices. However, there is no evidence that Lloyd left Thorolund to handle the matter in person. Rather, Wynn seems to have sent proxies to regain control of the situation. The giant adjudicators stand out as obvious agents of Aenir Londo, operating on its royalty's behalf whilst owning Guinevere's divine blessings. DS1 proved that God's giant slaves could become soldiers and knights, so judges aren't beyond the pale. Gaunt and lanky, these giants in robes enjoyed luxuries not afforded to the heavy laborers. But high status or no, the duty of a judge is to articulate the law and determine the guilt of the accused. The adjudicators were perfect for dealing with this rapid onset of sin on the gods' behalf. They, alongside agents from the Way of White, would primarily guide the humans through this ordeal, all while remaining faithful to the medials. The reason for Aenir Londo stepping in more directly is likely because, beyond being Ground Zero, the Ring City concerns the king's beloved daughter. The Church of Filianor was constructed as a kind of base of operations. One adjudicator, Argo, oversees the place while its namesake rests secure in her tower. Its location across from the Royal Mausoleum also cannot be ignored. In fact, the building is specifically situated directly above the shared grave, as if to project Aenir Londo's firm handle on the populace, whose life and death should lay in their hands during this disaster. We do see the god's hand in regulating the catacomb, a mimic inside containing the evil eye ring from Astora. Apparently, the gravekeepers confiscated articles from the dead before burial, sealing even the smallest thing related to the abyss and security chests brought from home. In this example, a pygmy acquired one of the many pieces crafted from remnants of the evil eye, presumably imported through trade before the undeath made the gods paranoid. Now the person is dead and the threat is neutralized. Granted, the ring does show the particular pygmy's interest in the life-sucking power of the dark. Aenir Londo had reason to be concerned. Although it isn't unusual to find a lightning or blessed gem within the shared grave, the same cannot be said for the simple gem. If there is a fool's gem, there should be a fool practicing beginner magic. Why would a sorcery novice be visiting the graveyard? For the exact reason the gods feared, to dabble with the humanity of the dead. Curious pygmies might find the ring of the evil eye, among other analogous possessions, and use them to hone their abyssal manipulation in the privacy of a subterranean tomb. The gravekeepers perhaps dispatched one such deceitful visitor, but what if one manages to slip through security? Aenir Londo may have ignored such minuscule risks when fire was going strong, but the Church of Filianor cannot afford to overlook the small details. Guinevere even gifting her blessings to non-warriors speaks to the dangers the adjudicators were expected to face at their new post. This danger extended to the Pygmy Kings, who were not equipped to deal with this catastrophe by design. Thankfully for the royals, Aenir Londo had no intention of letting the ruling government under their thumb collapse. The kings were isolated, unreachable when we first arrived at the mausoleum. This probably ties into the isolated tower looming over the royal cemetery. The tower may have been more accessible once upon a time, as we do see cobblestone clearly collapsed in the space between the Church of Filianor and the tower. But as of now, no one can reach the tower without flying, like Mitter. The edifice stands out among the cityscape, promotional artwork even giving the place central focus. And yet, it is the only landmark in the area we see from the start but never explore. After the Ring City becomes part of the Ashen Desert, the same tower hangs behind the ruined audience chamber. Even though they are distinctly different buildings, the association indicates some connection between the two. And for our part, we cause this ruin in pursuit of the dark souls those Pygmy Kings possess. In all likelihood, the tower serves as the means to reach the throne room via a lift or magical warp apparatus. We never spy the throne building or otherwise obvious palace anywhere in the capital because it is located elsewhere, either directly below the rocky pillar the tower sits upon or someplace similarly out of sight. Whether this separate location was part of the capital's original construction or the result of later magical displacement, it came to require the tower in some fashion, and situating it so close to the Royal Mausoleum and Church of Filianor. The gods thus made the tower inaccessible to the Pygmies, cutting them off from their kings. This didn't stop Aenir Londo, of course, so they essentially became the filter on the kings. If citizens had their concerns, they could take it up with the Church of Filianor after following our same path through the various graveyards and checkpoints. However, despite their support playing key role in the church, neither Filianor nor the Giants were actually in charge of this operation. Close inspection of the front door reveals statues of Gwyndolin holding the staff, prominently incorporated into the design. The same statues, without the staff, cover the aforementioned tower to the Pygmy Kings. Recalling DS1 how Gwyn left his sons to guide the humans in his absence, duties they might have already been carrying out on his behalf before his final departure. With so much importance placed on securing the Ring City for Aenir Londo, it behooved Gwyn to have someone reliable set everything up to his exact specifications. In that case, it is no surprise if the Lord of Sunlight didn't trust management of the penal colony situation entirely to Giants. With his uncle tied up in the world of man proper, another of his children with the most to prove and closest connection to the dark would support Filianor in this endeavor. The god of the Dark Moon was the one bringing the reinforcements to aid the princess before the Pygmies fell to the dark. Gwyndolin hadn't brought with him just the Way of White and Aenir Londo's judiciary. When Argo summons Filianor's protectors to the church, the first to arrive are the so-called church guardians. If their name wasn't already a clue, their uniform and weapons make clear that they are the Painting Guardians. Why are they not defending their original namesake? Because they serve a different master. Since DS1, Gwyndolin has always had a unique relationship with the Painting Guardians on account of their reverence for Priscilla. In an era before the blades of the Dark Moon, the Dark Sun would have only his minuscule cult of priests and the Guardians for followers. A few might therefore elect to join the god on his perilous journey so far from his mother. Was he not also a part of the Painting to protect? Whatever their exact reasoning, we can see their dedication rewarded a number of ways at the Ring City. A bunch of the city's clerics pray in a circle around a ruined building sinking into the abyss. The surviving interior is filled with statues of the ring-burdened Pygmy, this propaganda suggesting that the building was for general human use. No one else benefits from the constant reminder. And what men would faithful servants of the gods hold in such esteem? Those serving God directly. And what do we find when a corpse carrying the church guardianship? Looking at the menu graphic, the shiv is a small throwing knife modeled on their flat-tipped curved swords. However, what is actually thrown are illusory copies limited only by the user's willpower. The tiny blue crystal embedded in the physical shiv is the presumed catalyst for this blue magic. But the Painting Guardians in DS1 threw mundane throwing knives. Where did they learn this magic? From Gwyndolin, a god and sorcerer. It makes sense for those dispatched to the Ring City with the Dark Moon deity be blessed with some of his magic. Likely before they left, the god created the tools to augment his servant's strength in the trials ahead. Gwyndolin wasn't their sole source of God's blessing. During our boss battle, the Guardians also cast miracles with the cleric's sacred chime. This use of holy bells may be the influence of Filianor, but they cast Guinevere's miracle of soothing sunlight, and it wasn't the first time the Princess of Sunlight rewarded the warriors for fulfilling their duty, according to DS1. Whether they received the goddess tale from their past work or upon choosing to stand alongside her brother, the Painting Guardians were well equipped for the mission even before meeting Filianor. After escorting their godson to the Ring City, the Guardians were given a stay in their own building within the capital, naturally, and ultimately assumed the duty of the newly constructed church's protectors at Gwyndolин's command. But as we know, Gwyndolin would have to eventually leave, as he needed to be supporting his brother in an era without their father. The god of the Dark Moon may have only been present for the initial construction of the facilities and systems, leaving everything to his half-sister and the adjudicators from that point on. The church guardians remained at their post, and the church itself carried on with its duties unchanged. The system in place, Aenir Londo could rest easy knowing that their princess was safe and bringing the greatest hazard to medial civilization under control. If the primordial serpents maneuvered against this continued stranglehold over the Pygmies at any point, they were coming against strong impediments. It would be no easy task to unseat the gods from their position. making any maneuverings at all was probably difficult with Gwyn's family keeping such a close eye on this weak point. The new laws were established. It was just a matter of enforcing them. You stand impaled. With the construction of the Church of Filianor also came the creation of the so-called Spears of the Church. Although the princess might have always had Knights of Aenir Londo protecting her during her stay, present circumstances necessitated a new order dedicated to her protection. After all, Gwyn justified supplying manpower to help existing resources combat the problem on the threat to his beloved daughter. Why not complete the hostile takeover reorganizing those combined forces into an independent paramilitary unit? Thus was a covenant established with Filianor's blessing. Each received a decoration modeled on her crest, presumably fashioned from the god's beloved copper, as the grass emblem appropriately rust green. Use of this sacred metal is all the more fitting considering how it is empowered so that persons like Argo can summon the owner to the church in case of emergencies. With this, they laid the groundwork for Filianor's warriors, a new chivalric order bound by magic contract. Armed with their own unique spears, these Knights of the Covenant pledged themselves to protect the princess. The spears are described as ceremonial, but this is referencing their role in magic rituals. Even just a fragment of the spearhead possesses tremendous divine power, which we can unleash as a string of phantom spears jutting out of the ground toward our enemies. Descriptions for these spear fragments attest to their former majesty, and the weapons themselves were once lauded by onlookers. These were powerful tools in the Covenant's arsenal, their holy magic with its strong tinge of lightning guaranteeing a blessing from the goddess Filianor herself. The choice of spears was likely its own bit of propaganda. The spear was, of course, the weapon emblemizing the god's glory, harkening back to the height of Aenir Londo's military might hunting the world's apex predator. As a symbol, it best projected strength in the face of the rising dark, intimidating any who might consider heresy. For a person to become a spear of the church, they internalized flaunting medial supremacy. Accomplished members were awarded a fancy golden cloth fastened with the same crest, which they proudly let flutter on their spears. After receiving enough of these accolades, the Knight of Filianor would then receive a piece of the green gemstone which previously decorated her emblem. Its divinity further empowers the spears in every sense. The actual Covenanters feel more focused, resilient, and energized, whereas their weapons gain more power for the miracles they unleash. This divinity even synergizes with the crest Argo uses to summon us. When our spirit first emerges to defend the church, a wall of the phantom spears briefly surrounds us for protection, followed by the periodic projection of lights resembling homing soul mass in appearance and function, except they shoot phantom spears instead of soul arrows. Because this autonomous effect is limited to whilst we are performing duties of the Covenant, it must be invoked from the crest like the actual summoning. And as with the weapon miracles, the young grass dew gem enhances the spell for the spear in question. Although Gwendolyn might be responsible for the facilities, it is clear that Filianor was granted the lead for staff. Shira identifies her as the church's master, and even holed up in a tower for safety, the princess had been contributing what she could as a non-fighter, sacrificing pieces of her own power to supply her new bodyguards. The spears of the church were ultimately her order of knights bound by her covenant. As the fairy tale princess in a tower for knights to protect, she would naturally award them for their chivalry. Indeed, the dedicated heroes among them were granted the title of a divine spear, receiving a golden spear of the same name and power to match. Shira implies that such recognition was traditionally only made during the Age of Gods. This isn't a surprise considering the notion that one is holier than the rest is something that would be determined, naturally, by a god, presumably Filianor, in this case. However, we can receive the title by proxy from the Covenant Monument. Erected in front of the church, that stone monument was likely used for recruitment. It features the same squire statues from Irithyll, only holding up spears instead of swords. The slab they flank also looks to possess an inscription, albeit long faded. The notion is complemented by the open book laid beneath the engravings, perfect for detailing their history and creed. The spears of veteran Covenanters stabbed into the ground on either side likewise showcase the group's majesty. In short, this monument probably served as a kind of recruitment notice for visitors and prospective spears, passing the baton to the next generation. Once they officially joined, members could pray to the monument rather than interact with the princess directly, our offerings they're rewarding us all the same. As to who joined the Covenant, the job of bodyguard is available to everyone. Though presently in ruins like the cobblestone, we pass statues of ringed knights standing proud with their spears as we make our way to the Church of Filianor. Once inside, we pass between yet more statues, now respectfully kneeling in the lead up to the princess. From this, we can infer that ringed knights were counted among the spears of the church. The surviving knights we come across do possess spear ornaments on their person, suggesting the entire order had exchanged the Covenant. This isn't a surprise, given the knights were exemplars to their people and agents of their kings. When Gwendolyn arrived with his father's concerns, it is only natural that the royalty give their wife increased security. By directing their knights to become her first spears, the kings confirmed their loyalty to Aenir Londo during this crisis and set an example for the rest of the populace to follow. Did you dream of becoming a ringed knight, dear citizen, upholding the abyss and national pride? Then, just as well, bend the knee to the gods. Of course, not every spear was necessarily a pygmy. Some of the original members were part of Gwendolyn's entourage, like the church guardians, after all. However, doubtless the Covenant is an instrument to keep the penal colonists in line. If anyone with promise refused to join, then they were liable to be placed under suspicion. How could a capable citizen not contribute to the cause with hollows invariably running rampant? If that person proved to be a heretic, then the spears would enforce loyalty by force. Every pygmy was being pressured to affirm their fealty one way or another. In other words, the order was primarily for man to regulate man. This also admits the secondary role of Filianor's knights. More than bodyguards, they were her agents. Joining the Covenant didn't mean taking up permanent post at her church. Thanks to the Covenant, spears could be called back at any time. Their place was out in the field, proactively protecting Filianor by eliminating all possible threats. One of the knights, Shira, reveals knowledge of a small shrine hidden within the main tower of the Royal Mausoleum. As she details, we reach this place from an annular chamber enshrining silver knights and statues. But unlike the main lobby, a knight in that round room is missing his sword. This signals it as an illusory wall hiding way to the shrine deeper down. That setup betrays this as a place for the god's knights. The shrine's altar even utilizes the Lothric model, complete with the knight's sword laid upon the royal crest banner. Anachronisms aside, the concept is clear. Faithful knights furtively come to pray for blessings. Not necessarily medial knights either. Back in the annular chamber, a corpse with embered humanity kneels to a silver knight statue next to the shrine entrance. Pygmies who supported their dark being engulfed by fire were pledging their allegiance, their valor earning any medial shrinegoer's trust with the secret. Thus could Spear of the Church and Silver Knight, human and medial, both find solace there. With that established, there comes the question of purpose. When we finally reach the secret corner of the mausoleum complex, we find a hole in the wall behind the altar. This opens a shaft down to the lower world, a valley of dark, as Shira describes it. The dark in this veil presumably refers to the dead piled up across the entire area. The bodies still not rotted thanks to water dripping down from the upper world. Indeed, after forcing Mitter off a ledge during our second encounter in the Ring City, the dragon falls directly into this underground gorge. The corpses themselves are evidently human. At the height of his abyssal corruption, Mitter's roar is able to rouse dark souls in the surrounding dead, the humanity emerging to swarm the last living human they can find. Whether this is because of envy or love as Affinity explains in its description, it is obvious that the souls belong to many denied a continued bodily life. But how did a plethora of humans end up down there, and why did the knights open an informal passage to it from their hidden shrine? Likely because they are responsible. The shrine is decorated with ring iconography, often backdropping primordial serpent statues along with curtains for a fancier flourish. That might seem odd for a holy knight's place of worship. Why not continue with the silver knight statues? By this point, the primordial serpents should be the gods' enemies, traitors who ultimately chose to embrace the curse. Enshrining them would suggest sacrilege. But in this context, the icons are probably used not to represent the world serpents overall but one in particular, who wholeheartedly supported Gwyn's Dark Ring for man, and Frampt always did sanction killing those he deemed to have served their purpose or lost their way. With one of the wise serpents championing the continuation to the Age of Fire, the knights would feel empowered to silence anyone who defends an age for men. And who comes to a shrine without offerings? In short, the humans of the valley are the knights' victims, brought to the shrine as proof of their dedication as they pray for God's blessing.
Energy,
The entrance to the valley behind the altar thus serves as a garbage chute, disposing of those offerings.
Alright.
This explains why Shira refers to it as a valley of darkness when they appear like ordinary dead.
Hey,
The dark she
Tyrone.
references isn't the actual nature to their humanity, but their heretical allegiance. They may be normal humans, but they exposed their true loyalties and so were marked for death. This
Not
also
much
explains
is
the need
going
for
on, just
secrecy with the
listen to my
shrine.
thesis.
What could a spear gain by praying there over the Church of
Let's
Filianor?
see.
If the goal was to avoid making an official statement, then a lot. The Lord's Blades from DS1 proved the effectiveness of eliminating threats from the shadows for Inner Londo. When not facing hollows or monstrosities, spears likely mimic their example and slew the god's enemies discreetly. Public displays might create a backlash, but quietly disappearing leaves much to the imagination. The
Alright,
people's
we're
fears
good.
and doubts will keep them in line. There certainly was a silent game being played in Pygmy society, with heretics among their midst. Hiding
Alright.
behind an illusory wall in the Silver Knight rest area of the mausoleum lurks a city cleric. Behind him stands another illusory wall hiding a corpse with a weary warrior's soul. And behind that is one more illusory wall hiding yet another corpse, this one at peace clutching the text for lightning arrow close to the chest. Considering that the miracle is mainly used by Inner Londo's female knights, the corpse likely belonged to one of the gravekeepers coming there to rest. And given the circumstances, the cleric hiding with them is beyond suspicious. Most likely, the deceitful holy man killed the unsuspecting knight while off duty and tried to cover up the death with magic, doing the same when another tired warrior came by and risked stumbling on the scenario, just like when we break the illusion now. Whether he had fully fallen to the dark or simply resented the god's repression, he still feared repercussion for his acts, a sentiment that is much more extensive than the odd rogue priest. One building in the city street stands out for its integration into the mausoleum's main tower. This justifies the same pots and boxes laid around the interior, walls lined with silver knight and primordial serpent statues. Perhaps the place took part in distribution between the city and mausoleum, hence the dome on the building's second level keeping the fancy chairs designating a rest area. The juxtaposition of silver knights and primordial serpents nonetheless emphasizes both welcome and warning for humans entering the mausoleum from there, even though it is only one chamber. This seems to be because it is another rest area for ring knights, going by the statues. This makes sense since the back entrance leads out to the checkpoint bridge, opposite the night station. When needing a break, the watchman could head in to sit rather than return all the way back to barracks. The same is true for knights returning from street patrol, the adjoining building granting easy passage from the city to the break room to the checkpoint to the barracks. Any ringed knight might make use of the mausoleum's facility. And what did they talk about in the privacy of that break room? Had they truly bent the knee like their statues? Some apparently did not. One of the kneeling statues in that chamber has been broken and thrown aside, the inscription on the exposed wall cryptically demanding a show of our humanity. If we approach while mimicking a humanity spirit, a ladder drops down, leading us up to the city rooftops which hide the purging monument. Some fans might object to the secretive status when it is out in the open. But considering that Lap is lost on where to find the monument while looking over a balcony where it is clearly visible, perhaps it is better hidden from the populace than one might imagine. Either way, it is odd for ring knights to be maintaining a secret road to what is essentially a massive purging stone. After all, purging stones are used to transfer curses, including hollowing as this game demonstrates.
Beautiful.
Shouldn't this be made available to as many residents as possible? But access is restricted to mere hollows. We have to appear as if we embody a dark soul, with all that entails. Indeed, it takes someone fallen to resort to the purging monument. After all, purging stones are derived from people, with the number of faces emerging from the massive stone betraying the countless number of people sacrificed to create the monument. Innocent or not, killing those lives was unlikely to be sanctioned by the gods. The only other place we can find purging stones within the city is at the mausoleum, on a corpse amongst a pack of faithful citizens. They are obviously a rarity despite their utility, likely because their creation is considered unconscionable just like in World of Man at large. The fact that some conceived of purging stones seemingly well before the birth of their popularizer, Erlarstor, speaks to the individual's desperation, or depravity. But Lap reveals that the small stones have their limit. A single life can only absorb so much of a curse. And so, some pygmies petrified who knows how many for a seemingly endless repository of curses capable of curing the worst hollowing, like with Lap. If that wasn't enough, we can also use it to absolve our sins.
Alright.
In short, the only pygmies who would require the purging monument are those with advanced undeath and much to hide from the gods. It definitely explains the level of secrecy. Certain hollows of the Ring City use the purging stones to stave off the mental decay from their curse whilst wholeheartedly embracing it, similar to Launder. With help from the stones, they can maintain normality in public while cultivating their dark in private. It is a monument by heretics, or heretics. This is why we can use the monument to reinstate the king's decree, allowing us to re-challenge the spears of the church boss fight as our sinfulness dictates. The ability to request absolution on top of all this, however, is beyond curious, since these mechanics are shared with the statue of Velka in the undead settlement. After all, it is the goddess of sin who determines the crime and appropriate punishment. Is bribing petrified souls with more souls simply for player convenience, or does the monument hide a deeper secret? Recall that DS1 implicated Velka as the inspiration to the Earl of Karam in production of his secret
There you
treasures.
go.
If man-made purging stones predate the Earl, then it is likely because she shared the manufacture method with someone else. The god is familiar with arts old and new. Is this purging monument then connected to Velka, perhaps even hiding her statue beneath all the purging stones? DS1 already affirms that she was deeply involved in Gwyn's projects at the time, and it wouldn't be the first instance of the goddess seeming to subtly sabotage his efforts. Combined with circumstances in Launder, and one has to wonder if Aner Londo's resident which was secretly aiding the heretics of the Ring City. She wasn't in charge of this operation like a new Launder,
I like how the
so she
voice
did not have left
randomly
Lord Ren to visit
changes
during the incident,
suddenly, like
neither
he's
do we
like,
see sign of her servants.
Wait, but I have
But
to
if
make
sin
it
is her
sound more
domain, then
dramatic.
adjudicator's duties arguably also fall under her jurisdiction. All she needs is for someone in Gwendolyn's entourage to pass on this information to susceptible undead and let their greed do the rest. Velka's involvement notwithstanding, the purging monument was a haven for sinners, with the corruption going up the chain to Ring Knights, though with the giant on the way there is any indication, those rebels have been dealt with. Lap's knowledge similarly proves that word of the purging monument has leaked outside the Ring City, meaning that its existence and purpose were probably discovered by the authorities sometime during the crackdown on undeath. Finding and rooting out such secret circles of hollow fanatics in the public and government was probably the norm for adjudicators and spears of the church. Shira implies that man had overwhelmingly forgotten their gods long ago, craving the dark instead. It was a tireless effort to remind the pygmies of their fear, no doubt fraught with dangers. The fact that the church guardians employ a chime typically reserved for undead clerical staff speaks to the hazards of defending It must have been a constant struggle to prevent an all-out coup. And all this ultimately came to a head when the first flames end drew imminent. Dream of a better morrow. Despite all these efforts to keep the undead curse under control, Filianor has not had the presence of mind for much of it as of late. She has been sleeping, and this, according to Argo, was decided for her by royal decree. Citing trespass as violating this law imposed by the king, the adjudicator forbids entry to the Church of Filianor,
That's
even by
crazy.
spears of the church. The one exception is when spears are summoned to enact retribution against said violators on Argo's behalf. All of this is for fear that visitors' intention is to disturb the sleeping goddess. Protecting the princess is also the so-called law through the covenant, so arguably nothing has changed for her knights. Their job is still to preserve Filianor's state. Awake or asleep, a spear who would disregard this new red line is naturally considered corrupted by the abyss. However, this still doesn't answer the need to keep Filianor in slumber. From Argo's dialogue, Filianor is to remain asleep until the abyss is suppressed. As of now, it still runs deep, which is most evident in how much of the city is sinking in an abyssal swamp. Black in color, this initially unassuming marsh is clearly another manifestation of humanity. Magic reinforces the insinuation. When using any kind of mimicry spell to blend in with our surroundings, we take the form of living humanity there and only there. It also refuses to drip down into the lower world despite Mitter falling through the swamp to reach the destination, filled with water from
It
above.
keeps resisting.
Simple or otherwise, it evidently has some will keeping it at the city above, much like other collections of humanity manifest into an abyss. And while this abyss may not corrupt whatever it touches, as was the case in Awalasa,
Oh,
its
look
instinct is
here,
still
I
to
take it
devour.
must under wilds cover.
Random areas of the explorable wetland have manifested purple crystals, especially around the buildings sinking into its depths. These presumably possess a similar constitution to dark gems, one of which hides on a corpse within the swamp. In other words, the crystals are most likely a byproduct of the dark eating what disparity is present in the stonework. They certainly do seem to form rather
Man,
fast. A
poor
body having been
Black
crushed
Swamp.
beneath a particularly large crystal formation in the middle of the swamp, his belongings unsurprisingly reduced to rubbish. At the same time, the dark bog doesn't poison us like its counterpart in the consumed King's Garden. Yet like the poison swamps in Farron and Earthen Peak, the abyss has allowed lily pads and small foliage to proliferate, though the city's larger trees, defoliated in its fluid, haven't been so fortunate. There is no denying that the swamp's negative effect on the environment, even when not being actively devoured and crystallizing. This abyss is simply less aggressive. Even then, the viscous dark has clearly been expanding, if ever so slowly, over time. The city sinking in the swamp may be what Argo has in mind. Even if so, it is merely a symptom from a more metaphorical immersion into the dark. Like at the Drakeheath, the swamp can only form with the expansion of humanity, freed from its divine shackles. In short, the pus of man or similar manifestations must have been running rampant to coalesce. And even if the swamp wasn't a concern at the time, its existence now portrays Aenor Londo's war against the Ring City's radical elements as a losing battle. This is consistent with Shira, who repeatedly emphasizes Filianor sleeping at the heart of the dark as the first flame fades. It is clearly important that the princess sleep there, in the Ring City, during this twilight era. Still, this leaves many questions apropos to the act. First is the question of purpose. How does Filianor's repose reign in the dark? Shira claims that the princess sleeps for the sake of man, but her slumber doesn't seem to stop the spread of the abyss or the destruction and mayhem in town. All it does is preserve the capital from the Drakeheath, not even the eclipse in the sky. The Ring City Hollow calls her sleep a deception and a lid on a cesspool, hiding the dark soul along with the nasty waste from us. And when that lid is removed, the Ring City suddenly becomes part of the Ashen Desert like every other land, Filianor instantly mummified. Not every resident is affected this way. A Halloween Knight still patrols the ruins nearby. Those with some form of immortality are still able to survive regardless of the princess state, just like in the Drakeheath. Only Filianor becomes a mummy, likely because she spent so long in hibernation without additional provision or healthcare. No pureblood medial should be able to survive in those conditions without magic. It is as if, in a flash of light, time caught up to the Ring City, or more accurately, stagnation. Put simply, Filianor's sleep has apparently created an invisible, metaphysical barrier around everything within the rock walls of the capital. The separate dimension is immune from stagnation, hence we don't find any signs of the deep there despite the plethora of dark. Even as everything else is dragged down through time and space as it signifies, the Ring City stands a lone island at the bottom, carrying on as normal. This was the evident goal for her slumber. In that case, how the gods can construe this magical field as to man's benefit is straightforward. If the Ring City falls, a Dark Lord will invariably rise and lead the pygmies to end the Age of Fire, that which wider, God-fearing human society had enjoyed in blissful ignorance for so long. By preserving both the city and system constructed by the gods, Filianor keeps the kings and their dark soul from falling into the wrong hands. The king of Aenor Londo clearly wanted the penal colony functional regardless of the laws of the universe it may be subjected to. And so, he ordered the capital be made a time capsule of sorts. Then there is the question of timing. The only way to enter the Ring City is to masquerade as a royal envoy. By hoisting up a small black banner bearing a golden ring within sight of the capital, Batwing demons fly in to carry us over the walls into the Royal Mausoleum lookout. It appears that the system Irithyll established with Lothric was based upon prior precedent. Although this arrangement provides envoys safe passage to the Church of Filianor, it requires the Chaos demons who bloodied their hands with their own kind in the war immediately before Gwyn linked the fire. Shira also speaks of the Age of Gods as passed due to Fire's End, yet simultaneously probes whether we still recognize Gwyn as our god, not his firstborn. Therefore, Gwyn must have set up this line of communication with Filianor's church after he had already committed to fire linking but before departing for the kiln. He ordered Filianor sleep, with his successor entrusted to send updates should the situation change. By the time the princess received the envoy, her father may have already become Lord of Cinder. The message itself provides further context. From Shira's dialogue, Gwyn's decree confirmed that they would not be restoring the status quo anytime soon. Aenor Londo's golden age was officially over. The gods would need to deal with Fire's End for the foreseeable future. This doesn't clarify how much Gwyn shared of his plans. Were they informed of the fire leaking or what to expect from the homeland? As far as Shira knows, new word never came, so they might not have even been aware that the king was dead with a new king taking his place. What they did know was the order for the princess to sleep in order to magically maintain the capital no matter how much time passes. Gwyn's broader message was for the pygmies and their dark secrets to remain trapped inside the city whatever the cost. With this was the understanding that the church needed to mobilize for a full quarantine. We see this reflected in the Ola Cillian delegation. The antiquated King Garth description asserts that all but one of the delegates had left, the remaining member becoming the last sphere of the church. This suggests that the mission's departure was a direct response to Gwyn's royal decree. With the new envoy system being set up, any other contact with the outside world was liable to be cut off. The diplomates were probably alerted to this fact and so returned home before the quarantine was finalized. Wallacile would forget everything about man's dark past less than a millennium later, so the gods succeeded in isolating the Ring City totally. No longer would anyone visit, become a spear, or achieve the rank of divine. The potential for recruits was lost. The Church of Filianor had to make do with what they had. On the upside, the quarantine now guaranteed that no outside party would have easy access to Filianor. The church's chief concern became solely threats already within. While those persisting dangers were subdued, she just needed to set up the city-wide stasis. This finally brings us to the question of how her sleep achieved this. Why did something so large-scale require that as the specific means? The most obvious benefit to sleep is, of course, dreams. Quella proved in DS2 that entities in the physical world can connect to other minds in dream spaces, effectuating some control over the dream. Shouldn't that bond then go both ways? What stops dreaming minds from affecting the waking plane in turn? Perhaps Filianor performed a kind of lucid dream, her while imagining a ring city which would never decay in magic imposing that image on reality. In essence, the princess has crafted a mental stagnation to override the physical stagnation. This is why the magic field requires her constant attention in hibernation. So long as she dreams that the space is free of the world's rules, it is. But once she wakes from that beautiful dream, the false reality snaps back in accordance with its proper flow, in this case, to the end of the flow. Only in her fantasy can the sun always shine in a golden sky, uneclipsed by the encroaching dark. Her reverie of light is curious considering the means. As noted with Pontiff Sulivan, sleep magic appears more aligned with the dark than the light. Even in this instance, Filianore has dark tendrils growing from beneath her shut eyes, some burrowing out of the lids while the rest branch out across the cheeks under the skin. This can be attributed to her uniquely lengthy sleep. Her living eyes have seen only darkness all this time. No surprise, after so long, that they begin to manifest corruption. However, while ordinary darkness has historically affected subjects lurking within it long term, not even extraordinary darkness has previously manifested such tendrils. Typically, it is only dark stemming from humanity which produces those growths. Has the dark beneath the lids wholly consumed the light of the eyes, the souls in them no different now from natural dark souls? Or is it because she is using magic to see a world through that darkness? Either way, it opens the possibility that the princess is using a kind of dark magic to facilitate her reverie, which is supported by the catalyst. The egg cradled on her lap that she rests upon is obviously key to Filianore's sleep. The princess slowly wakes after the egg crumbles to pieces at the lightest touch, the subsequent shell pile emitting the flash of light that resynchronizes the ring city with the rest of reality. The only question is why she needs such a bizarre item. Some fans have suggested a connection to the transposing kills of Corlin due to Filianore's concept art. Close inspection of the egg there reveals the part of the crystal formation inside the shell matches the kiln's menu graphic. However, this is a minuscule detail in a ginormous artwork, so the artist might have simply reused art assets not expecting anyone to notice. The detail certainly isn't reflected in game, the egg model appearing much darker overall on the inside. With so many other details differing from the final product, the concept art is probably not indicative of From Software's full intent. Rather, the crucial detail appears to be the egg's yolk, the black crystal at the center. DS1 had introduced the wandering spirits, disembodied humanity which spontaneously came to life generating all manner of traits. One of these traits included a white egg shell, often broken as more body parts burst out from the shadowy core. The similarity to Filianore's egg is striking, a black core which has formed a white shell broken by some of the contents seeming to pour out of it. The main difference is the fact these dark contents have crystallized, implying interaction with disparity. Indeed, why would the princess need to perform this dream ritual personally unless her soul, inherited from the Lord of Sunlight, was required to make it work? Both light and dark hold dominion over spacetime, which is now freezing the ring city in place. In other words, it may be the joint power of Filianore's light soul and another's dark soul which enables this dimensional field through dreaming. As with so many examples in game, the combination of light and dark catalyzed something new, the petrified spirit becoming the stepping stone to direct Filianore's unconscious will to reshape
I don't know how I
reality.
want to keep that.
The gods using humanity to imprison humanity with light is definitely on brand. One can say that it is very much like the egg, a beautiful light shell entrapping the dark core propping it, not unlike the dark sign. The gods of light entrap the pygmies of dark in a ring, a never-ending cycle. This is doubly ironic depending on the owner of that spirit forming the egg. Did the princess simply take any OL pygmies humanity? Or did she require an especially powerful soul to match? If so, whose? The most obvious candidate is the first pygmy lord, having likely died with the largest humanity of any royal. His soul would be ripe for the pickings buried next door to the Church of Filianore. And in the wake of undeath, his would be most liable to rise back up again if left unattended. Therefore, sacrificing the founding king's humanity to fuel this stasis would kill two birds with one stone. It explains why the forgotten pygmy remains irrelevant in his undying kingdom. He isn't absent, he simply took a form we wouldn't recognize, a tool to stop his dreams for his kind forevermore. Against his will, he finally lay with his wife to give birth to a brighter future. Regardless of the egg spirit's identity, it is Filianore's dream which meets fruition, a stagnation to stagnation as her father decreed. All of this implies that Gwyn was at least vaguely aware of the damage his fire-linking scheme would do to the universe long-term. He never cared about the consequences for trying to preempt his fears. Even if never-ending fire did reduce the world to a pile of ash, it was still better than allowing the abyss to replace him and his legacy. Was Filianore aware of the same when she performed this ritual? An entire age had passed her by, and she would be sleeping through one more. Did she realize that she might never wake up again? That her father would not be keeping his promise? In the end, it didn't matter. With or without a heartfelt apology, she performed as instructed. Always the filial child, she was as much a prisoner as the pygmies. She truly is the son of man. Decline.
Alright.
With Filianore asleep, the pygmies had no choice but to simply wait, holding out in the hopes that the gods would enact a sufficing solution that never came. Problems naturally arose not long after Filianore entered hibernation. Despite Shira's familiarity with events pertaining to the princess she serves up until this point, the night has been willfully isolated from everyone for the longest time. This is on account of the Mad King impaled upon her spear. The king's madness explains it all. Although the localization states that he was born to pygmy royalty, the text more accurately reads that he was born from the pygmy king specifically. In short, the lord was not literally born mad but became so in his capacity as one of the council. And after descending into lunacy, Shira slew him, only to find that he would not die, shutting herself in a room with the lunatic ever since. This incident thus must have occurred after Filianore's sleep, and from the circumstances, likely was a direct response to her sleep. After all, his seemingly random bout of madness is due to the dark he embraced. Looking at the Mad King's remains, we can see the abyssal horns of ringed knight equipment sprouting out of the skull. This implies not just the use of the abyss but also its concentration in the brain, the dark's consumption explaining the mental aberrations. We can also presume his own humanity to be the cause. The sheer power of an unfettered pygmy king's dark soul is demonstrated by his unique immortality. Even as the body has decayed to the bone, the king only slumbers, roused with just a little stimulation. The surviving skull, spinal column, plus a single arm remain connected by a bizarre flash likely also generated from the dark. Whether all this is a remnant of his horrific transformation or merely the decay, clearly kept together by the powers of his innate humanity. Even undead tend to die after suffering fatal damage, even if the curse will restore them to health. This king hasn't even properly died once despite the bodily entropy. Such mutations in vitality should only be possible if the dark becomes completely untethered from its seal of fire, like with Manus. Even losing his sanity, the king was no doubt willing for this outcome. Although the localization calls it Mad King's folly, it is more accurate to call the weapon skill Mad King's fancy, in reference to a lunatic's caprice. By slamming the remains onto the ground, the wielder awakens the undying pygmy. Further stimulation results in the king responding in one of three ways. Either he simply howls like a madman or invokes his dark power to provide the awakener with a blessing or curse. His divine protection mimics the preserverance skill of other weapons. Meanwhile, the malediction appears to ignite his target's humanity, creating a purple will-o-wisp to give chase before finally exploding. Truly, he is a whimsical immortal. But this whimsy highlights certain mastery of the dark that the king could only acquire from personal desire. Put simply, one of the pygmy lords harbored heresy. It is not unimaginable for some on the council to see the instability from the fire fading as an opportunity. Even with the crackdown, there was no better time for the kingdom of man to break away from Inner Londo and fully indulge the abyss again. The Mad King was also not alone in this thinking. The Ring City Hollow is a former king, dressed identical to the other pygmy lord sans a crown. His location at the Royal Mausoleum seals the deal. The surprisingly blunt Regal calls himself an ally to those seeking the Dark Soul, believing that any human will come to understand wanting to wreck the cesspool the gods put a lid on. Even when slain, the man curses the gods with the abyss with his dying breath. Since he is so informed on the Ring City and Filianor state, the Hollow must be one of the latest kings, likely to sympathize with his mad cohort when he made his dark allegiance apparent. In fact, the ex-lord's place at the mausoleum suggests that his own heresy was uncovered and got him killed, only to fortuitously rise from the grave thanks to that of his curse. In essence, there was an audience receptive to the Mad King's message. He might have even made an explosive pronouncement. Both the Pygmy King and the Ring City Hollow are forced to crawl on their bellies like snakes because their right foot is partially missing. As undead, both should have been cured of such injury, so the fact that this remains suggests that it occurred before any death first triggering the curse took effect. The cause is readily surmised from the black stains on their pale skin. While some exists on the arms and a little more on the legs, the right foot was completely drenched. The two kings stepped in viscous humanity, which naturally began to eat away at them. But how? They should be sequestered away, far from any abyss. If the dark did manifest, then it must have come from within themselves. In short, a king unleashed an abyss in their presence. Who else would be responsible save the Mad King among them, happy to showcase the powers he obtained to his fellows on the throne? Assuming this did have a purpose, the Horned Devil might have been appealing to his fellow royals to take charge of their fates, as he had embraced the abyss and freed themselves of their fetters. With Filianor asleep, her church was plainly desperate. If the kings only understood the power they let be sealed within them, they would realize it is better to throw off their oppressors and claim the future fated for them to the mentally and ethically compromised. Such a demonstration makes a persuasive point. The monstrosity he became forced the spears of the church to step in, Shira skewering the traitor. With the knight vacating the premises with the undying monarch, that emergency was settled. Any who yet shared his sentiments were similarly removed from the council with extreme prejudice. All the remaining kings would end up undead over time, having survived all the way to the present day. But that is presumably in the course of their isolation while the knights continued batting the heresy on their behalf. The Mad King miscalculated in assuming Aenir Londo's desperation meant weakness.
Here we go.
Of course, there is always a new crisis. Given the amount of Titanite in their possession, it is possible that the Ring City had to contend with the emergence of Titanite demons during this time. To this point, the Titanite scales the Ring Knights also own may be intended to represent demon Titanite from DS1. If so, however, those demons have long been dealt with, and the city is currently rife with crystal lizards. Ignoring the knights, Titanite scales are only acquired from lizards and corpses within the vicinity of the Royal Mausoleum or shared grave, as to be expected. This makes it perfectly feasible for the Ring Knights to have simply slain the gluttonous crystal lizards post-transformation, hence we don't see any during our journey there. Even assuming that the Ring City was too far removed from Lordran for their Titanite slabs to be affected, they had no shortage of uninvited guests over the centuries. Like Argo, the other giant adjudicators primarily rely on summoning to combat us. But unlike the Church of Filianor Steward, the spirits they summon aren't spears of the Church. Rather, they are a variety of individuals, sometimes groups, from different backgrounds, united only by the compact they share with the giants. This contract differs from the Spear Covenant, the spirits only briefly manifesting around the giants for simple attacks before needing to be called upon again. Based on the red and orange coloration to the spirits, this may be some type of sunlight magic bestowed to the adjudicators by the royals they serve. Whatever the case, it still seems to bring souls through space and time, the spirits manifesting enough to harm the summoner's enemies while remaining completely untouchable themselves. That peculiar incorporeality highlights the unique nature to this compact. There is a cut proof of the pact item allowing us to perform the summoning ourselves. Perhaps the giants only take a piece of the soul, placing it in a medium used to conjure a simulacrum with all the person's powers. If there is a physical instrument for the exchange, then it explains why this contract can be coerced as opposed to covenants. The description to the cut proof affirms that there are varied reasons for the summoned party exchanging the compact, most of which are one-sided. Only in rare cases does the individual choose to exchange the pact out of friendship or mutual dealings. A possible example of the latter is the Dragon Man summoned at the mausoleum. Breathing fire upon the giant's enemies, the Dragon Man looks no different from the meditators of Archdragon Peak, though he is probably just a stand-in for a generic path to the dragon follower. Even if just a case of reused assets, why would a dragon worshipper come to the Ring City? The obvious reason is Nitter. Recall that these pathseekers traditionally pursued dragon scales to further their draconification. The visiting Dragon Man might have thus learned of an Archdragon's presence in the capital, making a deal to be part of the Giants' compact in exchange for the freedom to look around for any scales the dragon might have left. It is a fair transaction. A less willing victim was an army of knights who visited in search of the Dark Soul by royal decree. The ruin set worn by this order references the vacant nature of the ruin sentinels the knights inspired from DS2. Recall that the ruin sentinels were implied to be creations of Aldea, who was obsessed with learning the truth behind the undead curse. If records survived of the knights' final exploits, then modeling the golems upon them was likely more than just whimsy, and the names for the boss sentinels do suggest that Aldea had discovered such records. DS2 also hinted that the golems model belonged to Olafus, which is consistent with this new information. Considering that the old sorcery kingdom was desperate enough to convert its castle into a prison for undead, finding the source of the curse would be a high priority. And being such a studious nation, it is easy to imagine Olafus scholars scrounging up records of the Pygmy capital. If sorcerers believed this dark soul would help lead to the resolution of undeath, a king might dispatch his order of knights to acquire it. Alas, these knights of Olafus were never to return. Although the knights did find their way to the Ring City, a corpse in their armor laying beneath the Royal Mausoleum lookout informs their fate once inside. The knights are the most common compact spirit for the giants to summon, which may hint to their determination despite local resistance. Regardless of how far individuals got, they were still met with crushing defeat, survivors beaten down until they were all forced to exchange the contract with one of the giants, and after that, their lives may have remained forfeit. In the end, their homeland would never get the chance to study the Dark Soul before the undead curse inevitably overwhelmed them. Olafus was already buried in history by the events of DS2, so its knights fared no better. So thoroughly forgotten is their name, if anyone recognizes the armor, it is in connection to Aldea's golems, not them. Suffice to say, the adjudicators have been dealing with the Ring City's irregular visitors accordingly. Not everyone was given much of a choice with the pact. Conversely, not everyone ended up in a contract either. The Herald Legion also sought the Dark Soul once. Unlike the Undead Legion of Barons, this legion isn't referencing a military troop, but a group of warriors evocative of chivalric orders in different countries. Still, the fact that they are an order of warriors, not knights, suggests that they are an independent military unit unaligned with a specific nation, much like the warriors of Farron or Hovel. For the latter, they were united as Abyss Watchers or adherents to their god. What then separates the former from Cellswords? Perhaps a divine mandate. Although not easy to spy in their current state, their weapons and armor are completely gilded, complemented by deep red mantles and terrages. Combined, the gold and red fit in with devotees to fire and light. In short, they may be a kind of holy order with antipathy for the dark. If so, then the warriors, each and all god-fearing men, must have sought the Dark Soul to destroy it and the dark with it. Rather than join the Holy Knights of the Way of Light and be limited by their dictates, they established their own, secular force committed solely to exterminating the Abyss, similar to the Watchers. But contrasting the Undead Legion, who targeted the symptoms, the Herald Legion went for the source. Yet just as Farron honed feeble undead into kings, Herald organized dedicated men into an impressive army. Herald warriors wear a mix of scale, leather, plate, and chainmail armor along with a hefty curved sword. The
Alright.
Germanic name Herald means war chief, and they are portrayed larger than most enemies in-game, so the developers are most likely conveying them as the strongest warriors of their day, much like the Baronite Knights in DS1.
One of
Whether
the
Herald
deep
refers to the
political
Order's homeland,
implications of
founder,
Lu
or something
Ding
else,
biting
it
a
apparently
world
became the name for
leader.
those who reviled the
Don't
dark with
even
extreme
know who
prejudice.
that is, so...
And eventually, they found the home of the sinful soul plaguing man.
Don't
However,
have
in an
to
ironic
worry
twist of fate,
about the
they would
lore
succumb to that darkness they
implications
sought.
there.
While no Herald warrior is part of the Giants' Pact, a testament to their strength and resilience while exploring the capital, the group was ultimately thwarted by the Abyssal Swamp. Perhaps seeing the abyss slowly consuming the city, the Legion felt compelled to combat it.
Let's do this.
Either way, the warriors found themselves sinking with the buildings, the ravenous depths surely happy to gorge on such mighty souls. The Legionnaires' bodies were consumed along with their equipment, weapons half corroded, leather melted, metal bloated to laughably rotund proportions by dark tendrils bursting out from inside. If that wasn't enough, what remains has been reanimated by the abyss. The corrupted warriors dredged themselves up from the depths headless, the humanity possessing the husks flaring out the neck, their weak point, naturally, easily slain with a single plunging attack from above. The majority now roam the ring city mindlessly wreaking havoc, no different from your standard hollow. In every case, these soul seekers seem to have exploited holes in the divine envoy system. The Ring City Hollow assumes that we seek the Dark Soul because of other pretenders like us. We aren't the first to make use of a stolen envoy banner. The former king has probably witnessed countless humans be dropped off by the Batwing demons, only to ask about where to find the source of humanity. It is only natural that he doubt any visiting human be loyal to the gods when all have come to obtain heresy, why else infiltrate the cesspool medials created. No matter how many parties he actually watched pass by, it is clear that Anorlando didn't account for non-envoys taking advantage of the carrier's blind obedience to the system. None had succeeded in reaching Filianor before us, but it does show how the capital's quarantine wasn't as airtight as the church initially imagined. The infiltrators added just one more burden on an already strained security. By the time we arrived, all the Ring Knights' holy spears have broken, the Hollows carrying only the fragmented heads as they continue with their duty utilizing the embers of their sealed dark armaments. Despite these years maintaining some semblance of order, the Covenant may as well be forgotten. So much time has passed since the Dark Sign appeared in man, at least one of the giant adjudicators' holy waters from Guinevere has gone cold. The dung pies looted from the obedient citizens suggests that the Hollows have done nothing but stave off the curse this entire period, not even taking the time to clean themselves. Even the kings have suffered for this, their black blood completely drying up according to the blood of the Dark Soul's description. We can assume this peculiar development the result of their inaction, still blood dries, and flowing blood circulates with activity. Denying their nature for so long, it has withered with them, their sloth solidified. Pinning all their hopes on equally idle Filianor, the royalty were really no more than puppets.
There we go.
Coming together. With the emergence of the Drakeheap, the Ring City has become more than just an island in a sea of ash. The abyss remains strong within its walls, but the drift has widened its extent despite the quarantine. The Herald Legion are a prime example, legionnaires dragging themselves out of the abyssal swamp mostly buried in ash at the Drakeheap, same as the Merkmen. This apparently includes the poison swamp of Earthen Peak, where not only are the warriors more numerous, there is even a corpse carrying their weapon. It is possible that the abyss absorbed the poison in the land and turned green. The swamp doesn't appear to be the product of mining like in DS2, where the poison released as a gas. At the same time, the poison mine was collected in liquid form, so there may just be pockets of the abyss beneath the green pool. Nonetheless, it suggests that the Legion largely concentrated in the Ring City sunk into one swamp only to seldom pop out of another, physically separate. These aren't exceptions either, since the Legionnaires always possess ordinary dark gems, not deep gems like the Merkmen. Travel between the abyss swamps isn't unimaginable. Despite the abyss outside stagnating into the deep, it is nevertheless dark, and dark has dominion over space. It is no surprise that the two remain connected. This metaphysical link goes both ways, the Ring City swamp also bringing in its fair share of new arrivals. One is the Dragonslayer armor. After its defeat at our hands, the armor was apparently left discarded until the Drakeheap assimilated Lothric, sinking into the Black Swamp. Evidently, even after losing its boss soul, there was still enough of the old hunter spirit left to reignite, the abyss reviving the armor just like the pilgrim butterflies. By the time we arrive, it has already dispatched a number of Herald warriors rising in the vicinity in accordance with its memories of dragon slaying.
It's only 6%.
Clearly, relatively
but
small
that
things, the size of
decide a
persons,
lot.
can travel across spacetime via the abyss. Whether this is because of the Drakeheap or was always a possibility with different manifestations of dark, the result is some of the drift leading into the Ring City. Still, the capital swamp remains unique, and not just for avoiding stagnation. White-faced insects resembling locusts arise from that abyss and that abyss alone. Item descriptions affirm that these bugs gush forth from the swamp, and they are by their own admission unwanted by fire, making them spawn of the abyss. However, they aren't affected by the Wolf Knight's greatsword like other Darker-Line entities. Rather than manifest any signs of abyssal power or corruption, the locusts showcase mastery of standard soul sorcery. Without a catalyst, they can form souls into a local branch to skewer foes. This means that the power is innate, hence their severed arm is usable as the sorcery catalyst. This is evident by them producing similar pale magical body fluids as the failed-to-be Seth experiments, which the locusts seem to shoot out of their abdomens, though the sticky white stuff from this attack functions no different from flammable candle wax at the Grand Archives. Without a doubt, these fiends of the swamp appear to be born of moonlight more than dark. This in itself isn't odd. DS1 had already established creatures of the abyss that weren't of an overt dark nature. Just as a chaos demon doesn't necessarily radiate the power of flame, an insect spawned from the abyssal swamp doesn't need to manifest humanity. In the locust's case, their nature may be reflective of specific intent. Despite their insectoid form, their stark white faces more closely resemble a pygmy, with gray hair to complement their withered arms and bipedal stance. One might almost mistake them for old men turned locusts, and that might be the subtle intention behind their creation. Pale faces were historically associated with beauty and status in Japanese culture, elites using white makeup to embellish themselves. For the locusts to be born with such a trait, they must have been created to attract humans and impress authority as they spoke despite their alien appearance. And, indeed, they were born to preach. Every non-hostile locust eloquently urges us to not fear the dark and instead accept the hour as mealtime as is in its nature. This is knowledge they are born with, as we can hear even the smallest locust, presumably the youngest, repeating their mantra. Item descriptions likewise make a point that these insects should be inviting man to the dark,
Baby
illustrating the
pig
consequences of
me
mankind
hippo
denying
in
their
a
humanity with
Chinese
examples.
zoo, I think.
The first points to the city full of anti-dark
That's,
sentiment from fire-suppressing man all the more
interesting
harshly.
detail to know.
Subsequent creatures describe the failings of Orbeck, Ceres, Irina, and Igon. This highlights their intelligence beyond sorcery. But more than that, how could locusts born in the Ring City have knowledge of these individuals, many of whom are liable to be dead already by this point? Because they inherited it from the collective memory of the Abyss, the mass of humanity essentially a database for every man assimilated in the swamp both inside and outside the capital's walls. Simply put, the Abyss created the locusts to be its advocates. This isn't to say that the locust's creation was the result of intelligent design. Everything from the timing to the location to the physical shape to the mental development was in all likelihood instinctual, just like with the pus of man. The dark has been held back for so long, and its natural state is closer at hand than ever before. It is no surprise that where the Abyss is densest, it is also most active. As it unconsciously consumes the Ring City, it is also producing entities embodying the desire to eat, but to eat with a purpose to swallow the entire world in what we call the Age of Dark. If moonlight is representative of an earth affected by fire, then the locusts are an outgrowth of the Abyss collective desire to reach out to those affected who are nonetheless unwanted. Man, who each possess a fragment of that collective dark, is not following that will properly. In the grander scheme of things, the preachers are a simple mechanism to draw those dark souls back in line with the whole. One can see this in the philosophical ravings. The first preacher highlights how we are obviously alike, unwanted by flame. The white preacher head elaborates on this in its description, noting how both man and locust gush forth from the abyss and do not desire the age of fire. This is true on multiple levels. On the one hand, a man is arguably in darkness from the moment he is conceived in the womb. That burgeoning new soul is born from that darkness and into the light. In a more abstract sense, every man is derived from their humanity, defining them from other races. And all bipedal races, including man, were originally born in a world of darkness, ignorant of fire until happening upon it. The abyss is our more natural friend than fire ever was. We only think otherwise because, as Eldia regrets, of a lie orchestrated by those we call gods. In their arrogance, all but one the medials rejected the path available to them. The true-born heirs to the final age need not share their tragic fate. But, of course, time is long and few will listen. While we can come across a handful of locusts who still do their preaching, the overwhelming majority have succumbed to their appetite, single-mindedly feasting on any souls within arm's reach. Some scrounge for scraps of disparity from the dark crystals, others take it from their prospective flock. Based on the souls we can loot from their corpse, they have already dined on unknown travelers, nameless soldiers, and weary warriors. The only exception appears to be each other, the larger locusts leading their smaller brethren like a mother hen to her chicks. Perhaps that is why we see someone sitting in the swamp with a hollowed-out head of a locust to wear, trying to disguise himself as he crossed the abyss, going by the ambush when we approached the body. It didn't work. Regardless, the text for the white preacher head half-jokingly insists that we done it to fully become like the locusts and walk the righteous path preaching in their place. Perhaps their loss of ego was inevitable. When recounting Orbeck, one preacher describes how he thought to answer the dark with knowledge, only to know ignorance by the end. The locust mocks his efforts, citing how obvious the outcome was from the fact that knowledge didn't exist at the world's dark start. Of course, it wouldn't exist when it returned to dark at the end. True enough, life was ignorant about the universe when it became shrouded in shadow where fire wasn't. Only after fire grew to consume society did life become similarly enlightened. And now, as fire wanes and the universe heads toward the age of dark in some form, life knows not about its state once more. In that case, isn't the dark's attempts to educate about itself equally fated to be futile? Orbeck tried to learn about a world past and soon to be irrelevant, and the preachers try to enlighten men about that incomprehensible present yet to come. If ignorance is our destiny, then knowledge of why we should eat is pointless. The ringed city should simply devour and be devoured, as is our human nature.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me.
Oh! Bye, Hua Hua. Oh no, you've gotta be kidding me. You've gotta be kidding me.
Behold, this symbol of pure fighting a gentleman.
Sure, I'll play along.
Alright, we gotta do this. We gotta do this.
Have been cast. Bust.
We need to somehow get...
Or maybe I'll take.
We need adventuring, you need to just survive. For another 7% damage.
Spend free.
That's all. Literally survive. We're so
Tricks.
close.
Watch your head.
We're so close.
Forth all your might.
Thank you! Oh! Aventurine solos. Always bet on Aventurine. Woo!
Feeling lucky. Feeling lucky.
I'm feeling lucky, alright. Oh! That'll be 15 minutes, right? Because we had to do the repeat. Yeah.
Time to save.
We'll see if this should be. Yeah, okay. Oh, hey, Crosstop. Sorry, I'm not familiar with that, acronym. I can't even speak today. Acronym. That was so difficult. I am so happy that we're done there. Holy hell. And just in time, the thesis just ended. So it took an entire hard mode run. A successful one, mind you. And it's for that entire thesis to get through. Huh, out of all the people in Elden Ring available besides your character, who would you want ruling a kingdom you were in? Who would I want ruling my kingdom? Probably Marika, because she's competent. Oh, if we're talking about what do you mean by available, though? Because that mean... No, it can't mean playable, right? Because we don't play as anyone but the character. Like, if I had to choose, I would pick Marika. She seems pretty competent. She knows how to forge a kingdom from, like, nothing, so... I would certainly trust her. Yeah, we still want to save. Okay, good. Whew! Alright, so listening to that, I think suggests might have been used a few too many times. Let me look, how many is in total? 17, that's not that bad, you know? That's like one every other page. There's a section, though, around... Yeah, okay, there's two uses suggest a little too close there. It's not too long after another one, too. No, that's decent enough. Okay, so I probably want to mix that one up. Let's check some related ones. I only used indicate twice? Well, okay, we gotta. Okay. Okay, we gotta mix that up, chat. We got 2 use of indicate and 17 use of suggest. Clearly, I'm missing something. Let's see. How about imply? Implying once. How about imply like this? With IE? Not that often either, and it's pretty spread out. Yeah, there's only like 2 that are relatively close, and there's still a paragraph between them, so that's not the worst. Okay. All characters besides that, even NPCs. Okay, so, Gideon seems too much of an asshole for me to go with. I would not trust most of the other NPCs in the game to run a lemonade stand, so definitely not a kingdom. So yeah, I would go with Marika. I would trust Marika. I would trust Marika to run my country. I would vote for her. 100%. Girl, I don't care what skeletons you got hiding in your closet. Just make it so that way I have a good meal, some nice shelter, and, you know, a nice, peaceful future for my kids. Now, granted, maybe that last part's gonna be a little hard, because she has a habit of wanting to go on the warpath. But you know what? Once you take over the continent, she's done. So, I just gotta make sure... gotta make sure that we only have the children after that. Or before that, depending if I get conscripted. Anyone not dead or restrained is what you mean, though. So if we take Marika out of the equation, then, because she's restrained, who would I trust? You know what? I'll say Renala. Let Renala rule me. She's crazy, so she'll be too busy doing her own things. So it'll just be the Council of Dorks inside the Academy. At the very least, we'll have something approaching a democratic process then, because you'll have a bunch of these elites that have to, you know, debate and fight amongst themselves. What about the minorities, Loki? What about... Well, it depends. Am I the minority? Because if not, then hey, no skin off my bones. I picked the red-eyed dual-wielding Banished Knight at Castle Sol. Isn't he technically dead, though? He's already a ghost, right? You know what? O'Neil. Let's have O'Neil just be our commander and rule our kingdom. I'm sure he's got some great fiscal policy. Okay, but yeah, I'll be honest. I hated that working on this so much. I thought it was gonna be really awful to listen to. It didn't seem that bad. There's a few sections that here and there that I think I'm like, you know, those read okay, but I'm still not sure if I want to keep them in the content or if I think maybe I can get away with cutting them. So I might want to like look at that and see if there's a few, you know, like probably a total of like what, like 20-30 lines worth of stuff that might be able to be shaved off from here. Language was fine. I didn't hear anything that sounded too off with the... Yeah, sorry, just reading that. I didn't hear anything that sounded like it was too off with the wording and the sentence structures. How about in other words and stuff like that? How many? Okay, I've got 10 of those, and they're pretty close, especially at the beginnings. So I might want to lessen those. How about in short? 10 times as well. Any of those that are like not that bad. Okay. Not the worst. Would have gone with Morgott. Morgott's a good pick, I think, for sure. The problem I have with Morgott is I don't know how he would act outside of wartime. I feel like he'd be a good ruler in peacetime. He was able to hold the collapsing kingdom of Leyndell up, or Kenneth Haight for the memes. Kenneth Haight for the memes would be fun. Well, Kenneth Haight knows how to work with the minorities, right? So he knows how to have a multicultural society, quote unquote. So maybe he would be able to bring us all together. But yeah, that's an interesting question. Is like, who would I want to actually rule me if I had a choice? For memes, I would probably pick Bach. I don't use him for anything else. Might as well put him in charge of a country. Raya, oh my god. I'm sorry, I would not trust Raya with anything. You give her the nuclear football, we're screwed. Alright, so let's see. All of this cleared. This one, fuck it. These need to be done, and these need to be done. So... I mean, we're almost done here. Like, this one I'm gonna probably do last because of how annoying it was. But these three here, and these three here, that's not a lot. That's only 7 in total. Huh. Now, the Trotter one is always a mixed bag because you get Destruction Trotter, and Destruction Trotter will ruin your run instantly. But maybe with Aventurine and Hua Hua together, we'll be able to get them through it. Yeah, we'd have to construct this Dyson stuff. I'm so glad we were able to beat Argenti. We keep fighting Argenti. I am so done with fighting Argenti. I had such a good build there too, even though it didn't have much in ways of defense. But I was so mad just because frickin' Argenti was the boss. I was like, God, he can just nuke us because I don't have all those defensive blessings. And what do you know? It took a few tries. He definitely nuked us. But man... I love it when this game gives me a challenge. It feels so good. Like, that felt like such a good boss fight, chat. That felt so good. Like, I was thinking so much. I was like, God, do I save this ult here? Do I not? Do I keep on spamming? Okay, yeah. Yeah, spamming skill points was definitely the answer there. That was the mess up in the first or second run, I think. Gosh darn. And we're so close. Once we get these 7 done, we're halfway there. I'll be able to say that I've completely maxed out golden gears. I've done everything that's available to me. Also, do I have enough for a craft? No, unfortunately. Unless I'm gonna get rid of something right now. God. If that rolled literally just in speed and break effect, it'd be perfect, but I have zero faith in that actually happening. Yeah. Do I want to go for another run, or do I want to listen to that some more? Another run's going to take us a really, really long time. How long have we been going for already? Only an hour and a half almost, so, okay. Alright. Looking this over... Yeah, I think I'm going to have to give it one read on my own, see if I pick up anything else. But the text-to-speech, I'll be honest, that came off better than I thought it would. I did not notice as much as I was expecting listening to it. Okay, I think we'll just do casual run, and we'll just, you know, feel free to ask questions and crap, guys. We'll go as far as this next run will take us. I want to see if we can get one more. Wait, did I pick the dice? I don't think I did. Right? There we go. It sounded fine. Well, I'm glad you guys didn't notice anything. Yeah, I really think it's just a few areas there where I'm just like, you know, I'm not sure if that commentary is necessary or something like that, or maybe I can reword this a little. Oh, you know what? That's one thing also. I was wondering, how much did I use perhaps? Because that came up a lot. 20 times. That is a lot, admittedly. And some of it's happening pretty frequently. Now, granted, some of it's unavoidable, right? How much do I use maybe by comparison? Once. Yeah, okay. I need to vary that up then. Alright, so 2 things to do with this new draft. More indicate. Less suggest. In other words, / in short, look at. What else do I want to do? Less perhaps, more maybe. And probably... Let's see, what else could I think of? Possible... Yeah, possible... Including impossible in there. It comes up only 10, 11 times, so that's reasonable. Again, in a 30-page analysis, that's pretty reasonable. You told me to ask in the next stream I was on, so here you go. Can you explain again in detail why you don't think Ratigan was his own person before America became a god? I was discussing with my friend on why I agreed with you and wanted to go over the theory again. Alright, so there are several reasons for this. One, Ratigan doesn't show up in the historical record until the Liurnian Wars, and the Liurnian Wars don't occur until after the Age of Plenty and many other major events in America's life. So that's already a problem. If Ratigan exists, why isn't he appearing earlier, right? Like, you could maybe make an argument of the whole Giant's Curse thing with his hair, that maybe you can maybe be like, oh, but what if he was cursed by an actual giant during the Giant War back then? That's at least an option you can go for, but again, I think that interpretation doesn't hold up because it's such a vague statement, and like as I've said before, I think it's more likely just applied to the fact that he has red hair. There's no connection to giants otherwise. We don't see any why would they curse America with a male alter ego who has red hair like her, right? Like, again, I've talked about it being possibly the Greater Will maybe even inflicting this or something. Like, there are so many options that I think don't need to revolve around you know, Ratigan suddenly being involved in a giant war he's otherwise not mentioned in, right? Another problem is, if Ratigan has existed with America this entire time, since before she even became a god, then what's the whole point of Godfrey? What's the point of, say, because she's not using, she's already, like, she's not relying on Malekith to fight all her battles for her, right? But she's gonna be, but she can't rely on Ratigan either to fight or anything like that. She's just gonna sit back this entire time. And again, Ratigan makes no achievements, no nothing anywhere. He becomes a hero only during the Liurnian Wars, despite the fact that Godfrey and his old armies become heroes, and make names for themselves throughout so many other conflicts before that. Again, there's just all the circumstantial evidence sort of builds up to kind of led no reason to believe that there could be Ratigan that early in the timeline. And that's why I've said there's the most likely scenarios I see would be Ratigan is, how do I put it? Ratigan is either some like message of spite from the Greater Will to kind of screw over with America and put like another handler besides Malekith on her. Two, another option would be that he is the result of America's experiments in the wake of the Glowmite Queen incident, the whole Age of Plenty ending and stuff. She's like experimenting with things, and she inadvertently, or perhaps maybe partially, you know, advertently, creates this alter ego or whatever, right? Those are the two that I think are the most likely. And then the third one, you could maybe argue maybe there's some interaction that goes with the Glowmite Queen or Mesmer or whatever that leads to the birth of Ratigan. But again, I think those would be the only ones you'd really be able to kind of work with. And then, on top of that, you have to kind of deal with the fact that, again, Ratigan's entire identity seems to revolve around how he doesn't know who he is. He's trying to do, he's obsessed with understanding and stuff, and this happens to coincide with Marika's own research. So, just so happens when Marika's trying to look into the universe, the rules, the principles and stuff, you also have Ratigan who's really interested in this stuff, which is strange, because if Ratigan is supposed to be this alter ego of Marika or whatever, and he's been existing since the beginning, you'd think he'd be questioning his own nature that he seems to be so obsessed with later on in life. Why is it that only suddenly, after all the other events that are more pertinent to Marika than to him, is he suddenly now this obsessed with his identity? It makes more sense if Ratigan only existed, again, during that time of Marika's own research, then in that more recent period, it's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense why Ratigan is, you know, doing this all alongside her, because he's arguably even more obsessed than her, because he doesn't know what he is. He's Marika, but he's not Marika, right? He's got this red hair that Marika and he hates, but it's now him, and it's his own identity now, with his own appearance, his own form, you know, he has a dick now, like, there's just all of that just sort of, like, feeds into itself. I wonder if Mesmer having red hair has anything to do with that. Again, that's why I mention it. Like, maybe you can make an argument of some connection with Mesmer. I don't think Mesmer is, after, like, the whole fighting Mesmer and demigod slain and all that, I don't think Mesmer is Radagon's child, though. I was open to that idea before the DLC, but after doing, like, the boss fight there during my playthrough and stuff, I'm like, okay, that's closed. Because the fact that he's called a demigod and stuff like that, and all the connections with him with Godfrey and things, and the Age of Plenty and all that, him and Melina definitely both seem like they're just more children of Godfrey and Marika, but they happen to be born with, like, flames, one of death and one of darkness. Well, at least affinities there, right? And then, with that, there's also, how'd I put it? There's also the fact that when we see Radagon again during the Liurnian Wars and stuff, right, he more or less seems to act independently of Marika. And again, this isn't unnatural. We see so many characters who have, like, share souls, or they have multiple body doubles, or projections, or whatever, right? Like, it's very easy to imagine how Marika and Radagon can function, where it's like, oh, have you ever seen Radagon and Marika in the same room together? It's like, yeah, you know, they were having, like, that at the family get-together, or whatever, the other day, right? Like, it's very easy to imagine Marika and Radagon essentially being able to act through some magical, like, doppelganger crap that we've seen before, where they're able to go around doing their own things, while still being, of course, the same person. So that's also sort of cutting off the idea of, oh, you know, Marika and Radagon were actually different people, and it's only until either, you know, when Marika becomes a god, or in the case with this Liurnian War thing I'm talking about, you know, I don't know, sometime when, like, you know, they got married or something, then they became the same person, or whatever, right? It definitely seems like, one, Marika and Radagon were always the same person, or derived from the same oversoul, or whatever you want to call it. And two, that Radagon only arose sometime in the middle of Marika's reign, around the end of the Age of Plenty. Projections like Margit, yeah, Margit. You also have, what's her name? Irina and Hyetta, right? Like, Irina, like, we have Irina's corpse there, right, in the peninsula. At the same time, her doppelganger Hyetta is going around there and everything. You also, of course, have the Deeb twins and stuff like that, right? Like, they're apparently both they're, like, born, they're twins born of the same soul, or whatever, right? And they have individual bodies, right? So we see, like, multiple instances of course, now we also have Miquella and the manifestation of his love, Trina, right? So we have so many, and they're able to exist independently as well, right? So we have so many examples of it being fully possible for multiple consciousnesses, or wills, I guess you can say, that exist within a single entity. So again, the two persons in one god thing, or whatever else, being able to act independently and stuff. And as you bring up with, like, Morgott and Margit, it's totally possible for Margit seems to use, like, some citizens or whatever as some kind of anchor point or something, to be able to project his own essence and his own physicality, so that way he can operate, though it's not clear if he can operate at full power, right, as Margit versus Morgott. But the point is that he's totally able to essentially appear over vast distances. So Morgott's all the way in the capital, Margit's appearing all the way in Stormveil. When Morgott gets weaker, he can't appear in Stormveil, but he can still appear closer to the capital and the capital outskirts, as we see, right? So all that together shows that they're collectively, I think, just sort of builds the case that there's not really good reason to think that Radagon either predates the Age of Plenty's decline, or wasn't part of Marika until, like, say, after the Liurnian Wars or something. But by the time he first shows up, he's probably already both. He's probably newborn, and he's well, you know, newborn, again, I'm talking like the grander scheme of things. He's probably both newborn, and he's already part of the same god. Melania and Miquella also shoot out projections. Melania does it in Phase 2, correct? And, yeah, Miquella does the same with the Radagon. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so anyway, all of that's 100%, like, that... Maybe I'm forgetting something, but that pretty much sums up, from my memory, the arguments for Radagon's existence, right? And the big questions, of course, is what exactly created him. But I feel like at this point, we need to understand the deeper cosmology of Elden Ring to be able to answer that question. I think that's kind of like, what is the dark sign, or why do we have humanity, or whatever. Like, it's one of those questions where, like, if you get how the world works, it'll make sense. I'm just not that I'm not that person who gets how the world works, though. Someone else, please figure it out. I don't want to be the one to do it. Then it'll all fall into place, I'm sure. Anyway, let's do this Trotter extrapolation. First and second play, additionally generate a Blessing Trotter, Bury, and a Cure. Obtain 80 cost for each Trotter defeated. Oh my god. Immediately, generates 1 Blessing Beacon in random combat or elite domains. When entering a domain with a beacon during this movement, generates 2 on the current. Okay. Okay, cool. Alright, let's go. I hate myself, clearly, if I'm doing this, so let's do it. I'm sorry, Loki, you're gonna have to do it yourself. I beg you, please. Have mercy.
Make a wish. Does that hurt?
Beautiful. Jokes aside, I think Last Protagonist goes to do a bit sometimes. Yeah, other concrete creators have, but from what I've seen, I don't think they hit the mark quite yet. And they're definitely not obviously fully comprehensive in regardless. I would like to get rid of that one, honestly. There we go. Hell is other people. Yep, hell is certainly other people. HP. That's a bit... Honestly, overall, not a bad start. Rewards are doubled if we get this. Okay, so...
Make a wish. Does that hurt?
Thankfully. Oh, I should not have wasted that. I keep forgetting about the 1 health thing. Sure. That's a good start. I don't need ice weakness. Weakness break efficiency. If it needs attack under any dot. Sure, we'll trigger any dot first. We go for weakness break efficiency later. Okay, sure. Okay. I'll go for this adventure domain. Nice. So you see my post about Albanor casting Magic Downpour? No, I have not. Ooh. What's this about Magic Downpour? Oh, God, I hate this one. This one is so easy to do wrong. I don't even know if hitboxes change depending on character. I'm trying to think of how I want to handle this. God, I hope Wahua's tail doesn't count in the hitbox. Alright. Alright. Okay. Oh! That was close. One more. Oh! That was close. That was lucky. At the end of your turn, fixed chance for a character to gain a shield. Increase attack based on okay, no. More defense. If we get another Argenti. More rerolls or immediately guarantee on certain blessings. I think this. Alright, guaranteed and more. Okay. Yeah. I don't know about that one. Alright, immediately get me beacons. Cool. It was in Volcano Manor. I did so without a sigil. Oh, that is kind of cool. Did they use sigils for their other stuff, though? I can't remember. I don't remember if that's a thing. If they do sigils with their other spells or not.
Memories
There we go.
are beneath the waters lies an endless abyss.
Let's do this.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom. Ill tidings manifest. Stand still.
There we go. Alright, let's do this.
Dice have been cast.
You.
Bust. Or maybe I'll take it all.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them all.
Alright, so far, good start.
Cutting the net. Good times. Time to say bye. Boom. Relax.
Hedge your bets.
Stay put.
There we go. I think we won.
Hand has truly
Yeah.
blessed me.
We win. I personally thought Radigan was fused to Marika when she became a god as punishment by the greater will for being an illegitimate god. That's what I thought, but there are problems with that, obviously. Yeah, there are problems with that, like I mentioned earlier. But, again, if you can find something to at least, like, lend it more support, at least there's, you know, something there, right? I think we do this. Oh. I think we go with this one. All right. All right, let's see how this goes. All right. I don't lose that much if I do. Yeah. I've been duped. It's not the biggest loss. Really? First one on a 30%? God, that's double unlucky.
Ill fate descends. Beneath the waters lies an endless abyss.
How unlucky.
Stand still.
Damn.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me.
Actually, you're the bigger problem.
No dirty tricks, alright?
Relax.
Spend freely.
Say bye
Let's
to
prepare for
life.
the boss. Yeah.
Stand still. What do you want to know? Ill tidings manifest.
There we go. Perfect. Oh, that is so worth it, though. We're getting a lot of defensive ones. Alright, come on.
Make a wish.
Alright, let's see how this goes.
The dice have been cast. Bust.
There we go.
Or maybe I'll take it all.
Good times. Time to say bye.
Preservation Trotter's a bit of a pain.
Sure, I'll play along.
Relax. Ill fate descends.
There we go.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me.
Worth it. We don't really need that one. This one requires weakness broken, though. It's still good for getting our thing up, so... yeah. Now we want to start working toward remembrance. Alright, we go with occurrence double. If I picked up that hump blessing, I could have gotten rid of that. Damn. Well. This one. But the elation one's super good though too. But I know. Enter battle.
An elusive foretelling. Ill tidings manifest.
There we go.
Beneath the waters lies an endless abyss.
Fiends or devils.
My evidence, I thought, was that Mesmer was obviously Radagon's son because of the red hair, and the theme Mesmer has intentionally made to sound like Radagon's. Technically, it's more similar to the main menu theme than Radagon's theme. No, yeah, I can get that idea. So I can understand that thought process, but I want a bit more. Because music is always the most subjective element there. And like, so not Adolf, it's like Xavier said. There's a very obvious out there with the idea that, yeah, it's used for Marika and Radagon and the main menu.
Time to say bye. Boom.
There we go. Damage on this first plane is so good, I'm kinda scared. Little late. Little late here, bud. Gotta hate both of these. We'll go with fire weakness, I guess.
They don't
Make
look
a
happy
wish.
to see us.
An elusive. Ill fate descends. May as well kill. Relax.
God, I love that.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me. Destiny isn't chosen.
Oh god, and we froze them too. That's good.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom.
Head your
Stand still.
Stay put. Get that.
What do you want to know? Ill tidings manifest.
There we go. And he's dead. Boom. Wow, really? He survived that?
Stand still.
There we go. God, I like both of these. Let's also get this. Honestly, very good first thing for a Trotter run. Let's see. Sure, I guess if we ever want to just bring in Fushun. Duh. Easy choice, giving me some back. There we go. There we go. Alright, discard 1 Sealing Wax, immediately obtain 3 of the Sealing Wax's Paths of the Blessing. I actually like that. Ice Weakness, this. Cool. Okay, cool.
Make a wish. Does that hurt?
Alright, let's see what these two Trotters have for us.
Memories of beneath the waters lies an endless abyss.
That's what I was afraid of.
Never last. Time to say bye. Boom.
Watch your head.
Destiny is apparent. Ill fate descend.
No dirty tricks, all right?
We gotta get rid of you.
The dice have been cast. Bust. Or maybe I'll take
Freaking
it.
Trotters, man.
All in.
Didn't
I
hurt.
hit the mark. It's on me.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them all.
Yeah, not gonna have healing.
Stand still.
Watch your head.
Mind your manners.
Nice.
Say bye to breathing.
Try to save.
Didn't hurt.
There we go. It's another revenge one. Why do you do this to me?
Good times. Time to say
Why do you do this to me?
boom.
No dirty. Watch your head.
Cutting the net.
This one's gonna hurt.
What do you want to know? Relax.
All in. The dice have been cast.
Alright, let's do this.
Or maybe I'll take it all. Watch your head.
Yeah, yeah.
Spend freely.
I'm gonna hold everyone back again. Protect.
There we go.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me. Mind your manners. Stand still.
All in.
Didn't hurt.
Sure, I'll play along. It's on me.
Mind your
Watch your
manners.
head.
Alright. We got it. Also, for the Albanor question, all of them cast Glintstone Pebble with the appropriate Academy sigil. Oh, okay. Okay, so they do. So it's only that one they don't. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, we have so many. Oh no, this one's necessary. Crit rate. We need more Nihility. I'd rather get this. So we can guarantee we get the Trotters stuff. We'll go with this one.
Make a wish.
Go for the blessing, baby. Which one do I want to grab? Curio or Blessing? I think Blessing. Is that another freaking Destruction Trotter? It had to be the Destruction Trotter, right? When I... No.
Does that hurt?
I'm gonna hate myself for this, aren't I?
Destiny is apparent. Memories are ever changed. Beneath the waters lies an endless abyss. Good times never last. Time to say bye.
There we go.
Boom.
Note.
Oh.
Let's just do this.
Stand still. Cutting the net.
Spend freely.
Alright, we let them do this themselves.
Stay put.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me.
Beautiful. Oh god, I don't know how we're doing it with these Destruction Trotters. Remove Dissociation. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this was good. This was a good choice. Alright. Alright, let's see. The Ever So Reliable Wiki says they can only cast one spell. Yeah, it's the Ever So Reliable. Why is it always Destruction Trotters?
Memories are beneath
Why?
the waters
Oh, is that? No,
lies
yeah,
an
it's Destruction
endless
Sun
abyss.
Nihility. Oh my god, like, what is this, chat?
Ill fate descends.
Watch your head.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom.
No dirty tricks.
Cutting the net. Good times. Time
Alright,
to
let's
say
see.
bye. Boom.
No dirty tricks, alright.
Thank you. God, thankfully we have the DPS to deal with these guys. I'm gonna actually reset. Reduce damage. There we go. Oh boy. We're about to get in the negatives. That's always risky. Free reset's always nice, but we're a little late in the game for that. Let's do this. I don't think it's worth it. 150, that would basically be like me having to use it too. I don't think we're gonna have that much, so. Alright, let's go. We'll take the deer. Fuck Kokolia. Sure. Alright.
Make a wish. They don't look happy to see it.
Looks like Steam's got something going. So the other race Eldering deserve human rights. I'm asking this mostly as a meme, but I also think there's a serious discussion here. Yeah, like I know the demi-humans are intelligent and there's serious argument they're just like humans but different and primitive, but at the same time, how do we know they just aren't imitating, like not actually able to do these things on their own and are cleverly imitating like an animal? I mean that's a philosophical question, right? It's like talking about the Greeks locked up in the cave with the shadow men, right? So my perspective would be that everything tells me that the demi-humans are basically no different than like indigenous tribes, and my theory is that I think demi-humans are in fact the result of humans and beastmen intermingling at Far Missoula, and then they end up like leaving because they're considered outcasts or whatever, because that's probably considered taboo or something, and they end up becoming these primitive tribes that we see. That was my thought process. Though who knows? For all we know, it could be that the demi-humans were in charge of the Rao civilization.
No dirty tricks.
Anything's possible.
It's time to say bye. Boom.
The dice have been cast. Bust.
Screw you.
Or maybe I'll take it off.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them all.
High stakes, high rewards. It's on me.
There we go.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me. Stand
Do this.
still. Memories are beneath.
Alright, think we should be good for phase
lies
1.
an endless abyss. Ill tidings manifest. May as well kill them all.
Sure, I'll play along.
Relax. All in.
Nice.
Memories are beneath
Now this.
the waters lies an endless abyss.
You got any thoughts on the Bat Peep after the DLC? No, actually. I'm still not 100% sure where I should place them. Like, where their origin point would be.
The dice have been cast.
I'm actually concerned about you more than anything.
Or maybe I'll take it off. Watch your head.
Get that.
Alright. Nice.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them all.
There we go.
No dirty tricks.
Memories are beneath
Alright.
the waters
I'll be honest,
lies
chat.
an
I think we might be able to
endless abyss.
survive. Even with the negatives. Looking at our build.
What do you want
Are they
to know?
Crucible creations? Again, I am not sure.
Ill fate to say.
I am not sure where to place them.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom.
Hedge your bets.
Sure.
The dice have been bust. Or maybe I'll take it all. Watch your head.
Good times.
We need something to help give more freeze. Yeah.
It's on me.
Stand still.
There we go.
All in. Destiny isn't ill. Tidings
There we go.
manifest. Beneath the waters lies an endless abyss.
Sure, I'll play along.
We'll do this.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them all.
Spend freely. The dice have been cast. Bust.
There
Or
we go.
maybe I'll take it all.
Stay put.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me.
There we go.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom.
Woo! That's dangerous.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom.
Fiends or
There we go.
devils. I'll crush them all.
Memories are beneath the waters lies an endless abyss. May as well kill them all. What do you want to know? Relax.
Watch your head.
Good
Perfect.
times. Time to say bye. Boom.
It's on me. The dice have been
There we go.
bust. Or maybe I'll take it all.
I'm gonna hold everyone back again.
Get them.
Let's do this again.
Memories are beneath the waters lies an endless
All right.
abyss.
Alright, I think we win here. Yep. That damage, man. Take over like half its HP. Replaces all curios. What will that do? Nah, I'm fine with my curios. Alright.
Feeling lucky.
Oh, that was not what I wanted.
Make a wish.
Alright, last chance to get anything new. God, these are all good. There we go, last one. Reduce attack. Yeah, I think that's all fine. Alright, there we go. We at least get something. Yeah, now we're in the negatives. Well, yeah, let's try to get out of here ASAP. Do I want Remembrance or 2 Blessings of Nihility? We have most Blessings of Nihility. Yeah, let's go for Remembrance. Unfortunately, it's for a boss we cannot freeze, which sucks.
An elusive ill fate descends.
Hedge your bets.
Memories of beneath the waters lies an endless abyss.
It's on me.
Destiny's hand has truly.
All right, let's see.
Devils. I'll crush them all.
Good times.
Do
Time
this.
to say bye. Boom. Destiny isn't true. Relax.
All in.
Nice.
Say bye to breathing.
I'm gonna hold everyone back again.
Stand still.
Sure, I'll play along. Spend freely.
There we go.
May as well kill them all.
There we go. Pretty good start. I think there's pretty good evidence that Baja Knights are demi-humans. They have the same marking on their armor that the demi-human tattoos themselves. Oh, really? Is that true? That's really cool. This is really good. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is so important. Alright. We're gonna be playing RNG with a lot of other stuff, but this is gonna be nice. Alright, let's see. Frickin', yes.
A foreboding sign.
Okay, yeah, this works.
Make a wish.
Feeling lucky.
Does that hurt?
Alright, let's go. There we go.
The dice have been cast. Bust. Or maybe I'll take it all.
There we go.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom.
Watch your head.
There we go.
No dirty tricks. I'll
Memories of beneath the waters.
I
lies an
think we're
endless
actually in a
abyss.
really good position.
An elusive foretell. Ill fate descends.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them all.
Say bye to breathing.
Let's go. The biggest problem though is getting these guys to actually get frozen.
Relax.
I'm gonna hold everyone back again.
Destiny's hand has truly blessed me.
all in. The dice have been cast. Bust.
There we go.
Or maybe I'll take it all. It's on me.
Yeah. We'll do this now.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom. What do you want to know? Ill tidings manifest.
Stay put. Get them.
Stand still.
Ah, finally.
Memories are beneath
This
the
might be a
waters
mistake, but
lies
we'll
an
see.
endless abyss.
Watch your head.
Yeah, I think it was a mistake. I think with all the damage, I think I should have saved Swan's thing.
dice have been cast.
Yeah, there we go.
Bust. Or maybe.
All right,
I'll
now
take it all.
here comes the hard part.
Ill fate descends.
Relax. No dirty tricks. All in.
Good. Okay. Ah, damn. All right, fine. Split.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom. Memories are beneath
There we
the
go.
waters lies an endless abyss.
Watch your head.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them.
The dice have been cast. Bust.
Delaying this is so
Or maybe
good.
I'll take it all. All in. It's on me.
Destiny isn't chosen. Stand still.
Beautiful. That's how we get more damage.
Good times. Time to say bye.
Boom. There we go.
Destiny's hand has May as well truly kill 'em blessed all. me. Good times.
There
Time
we
to
go.
say bye. Boom.
Hedge your bets. Spend freely.
Ill tidings
Mhm.
manifest.
There we go. Oh yeah, I think we do this.
Memories are beneath the water. There lies an endless abyss.
The dice have been cast. Bust. Or maybe I'll take it all. Watch your head.
There we go.
Relax.
Do this.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them all.
We do this.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom.
Okay, good.
All in.
What do you want to know? Ill fate descends.
It's up on me. The dice have been cast.
Yeah, bring you
Bust.
down.
Or maybe I'll take it all.
No luck on the horse. Then we do this.
Memories are beneath the waters lies an endless abyss.
Do you have like a diagram of your Elden Ring timeline I can read? I would appreciate if you put it on the description if you had one. Are you on the Discord, Tyrone? Because I posted in the Discord. It should be like pinned in my Elden Ring, in the Elden Ring channel. It's important we get there.
Get them.
Stand still.
Fiends
There we
or
go.
devils. I'll crush them all.
Good times. Time to say bye.
There we are.
Boom.
All in.
We got this, chat. We got this easy.
The dice have been cast. Bust.
Get the
Or
frozen
maybe
one.
I'll take it all. Spend freely.
Destiny isn't chosen. Ill tidings manifest. Beneath the waters
do this.
lies an endless abyss.
Alright, survive. We survived. Alright, we got this.
Good times. Time to say bye. Boom.
Fiends or devils. I'll crush them all.
The dice have been cast.
This one's already going, so we try to delay this
Or
one as much
maybe
as
I'll
possible.
take it all.
And this is why. This is exactly why we do this.
Thanks. You're too good to me.
Sokka's about to get hit hard.
Ill fate descend. Retribution
All right.
memories are beneath the waters lies an endless abyss.
Woo!
Watch your head.
Say bye to breathing.
One more time. I think we got this. Kill it. Yeah.
Good times. Time to say bye.
We win.
Boom.
That was pretty smooth.
Destiny's hand.
Relax.
Oh, he's dead. Whew! Fode's messed up. Aw, man. But at least you're back, so. Alright. But yeah. The timeline I have for specifically Godfrey's reign is right here. Also, let me. Save recent gameplay, save last 15. There we go. That was another good win. I'm happy with that. Anyway, where do I put my FromSoft Elden Ring? Is it in records? No, it's not in records. Ah, here it is. This is my timeline, so feel free to take a screen cap of this one if you want. This right here. This is my current up-to-date timeline after playing the DLC, where I feel as far as Godfrey stuff is concerned. Stuff before that, stuff after that, there's a lot of room, wiggle room. But this is the stuff that... This is where I'm currently at for this important piece of history that I think we have just enough to be able to surmise. Anyway. Gonna put that away now. Phew! I did it. That was... I'm so glad that wasn't Argenti. Granted, Argenti probably would have gone frozen and maybe would have died more. So it's possible that I'm missing out on an even easier win there, but that was still pretty smooth, all things considered. Like, I am very impressed. We only need 6 more and we're done. That's gonna be satisfying. This also means I can finally do this now, right? Yeah, I have 100. Alright, chat. Let's see. Am I finally gonna get those boots I've been wanting? Attack boots with crit rate and crit damage substats. Come on. Well, at least you got the attack. Damn. It's never happening. How many credits do I have? Oh my gosh, I'm back at 17 mil. I wasn't even trying. I'm already back at 17 mil. What do I want to do now in the future? Oh yeah, we need to... Let's put your good light going back on, Jade. We're not using QQ right now. Oh, yeah. Alright, so look at what I got here. I think next week I'm going to be able to get more Ascension material, so probably ascend you. Yeah, I don't know. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to focus on ascending these guys. I think I'm going to focus on... Yeah, I think I'm going to focus on ascending, Serval or... Well, Shui can already be ascended, so that's not a problem there. You know what? No, yeah. Let's focus on Arlen, Moza, and Yukon, maybe? I don't know. I guess we can always do Bailu. The problem is because for who I'm leveling and stuff. Trying to space this stuff out so that way I'm not wasting anything with how they have the gacha game time mechanic shit works. Heard his portrait, we're fine. Yeah, no. Alright, we're gonna end this for today. I got everything that I wanted. There's nothing I'm missing here. I've done my weeklies and stuff, so next week can't come soon enough, I will say. So, yeah. I'm glad with how the thesis is turning out. Sounds pretty good as far as a first draft is concerned. Considering how long it took to get to that first draft, I'm very happy with it. Subsequent drafts, hopefully, we'll be able to polish it up. And I'm probably going to have it either posted over the weekend or on next Monday, so that's something to look forward to. Anyway, it sounded very good. I'm glad that it sounded very good. I hope when the final product gets posted, you guys will be able to enjoy it more, because then it'll have all the reference images and everything, so you can properly see it all. And be able to kind of, like, you know, not have to, you know, listen to the voice, you know, going through it, everything, you know, at its own pace. So, that'll be cool. Anyway, I'm gonna finish things up here. Later, chaps. Be safe.